Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Three Pointer Podcast. I'm Brent Clemmer, your host, and with me today, as always, Brennan Beck, Luke Erickson, and Justin Bridges. We do have a little bit of a different setup today. Justin is in person with me. Looking pretty good, though. It'll work. We'll get it done. Once again, this is a podcast, so you guys enjoy the visuals, but it is more about the audio, per se. Brennan, what's going on today, bud?
Not too much. I'm doing well today. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, man. Luke, what's going on today for you?
Oh, not too much. Just living with the sunburn I got from golf over the weekend.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Bridge, what's going on?
Yeah, I noticed the sunburn. Not a whole lot. Just hanging out.
Out.
I was gonna go long this time because Beck went really short, but
I noticed Beck went short.
You noticed that, eh?
Short this time.
If you want me to, I can go on a little spiel. But
no, it's really okay. We'll get right into it here. Okay, so basically today we're going to be talking about some of the news from around the league. Obviously, the Sixers. We are on a Philadelphia-based network, and the Sixers are kind of a big deal to. Well, yeah, you could say that, but we're going to talk about what we think they need to do. What the fuck happened in that series against Atlanta?
There's a certain number 25 that's probably going to be discussed a lot.
Yes.
There's a hot topic there, and that guy is the point guard.
I'm really hoping that Jake Long's going to show up. We'll see.
And yeah, so talk about that. Talks about some of the other series too, and then get into some of the worst contracts in the league. So yeah, let's just start it off with some of the news. Beck, you want to bring up our first little bit of discussion?
Yeah, so something cool coming out of the NBA today, just a little rumor. Becky Hammon, a longtime assistant of the San Antonio Spurs and the first female assistant in the NBA, is now a finalist for the Portland Trailblazers head coaching position.
Wow.
She becomes the first female finalist candidate, which is really great to see.
That's
obviously.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great to see the NBA moving.
Maybe that's what
towards
Portland needs. Maybe that's the piece that they're missing.
Just a change of tone, eh?
Yeah, honestly, like honestly, a lot of teams are really good, and sometimes a coaching change is just what does it for them.
Yeah,
we've seen it before.
We saw it in Toronto with Dwayne Casey. Dwayne Casey obviously having great tenure in Toronto, coming out. Nick Nurse coming in, different bit of philosophy, different voice. Really did spark the
I'm
Raptors.
just going to say there was something else that happened there in the addition of Kawhi Leonard, but
there was, yes, a certain individual who arrived in Toronto and ultimately helped carry the team. But there were a lot of guys there with bad playoff experiences too. And, Dwayne Casey being the guy to lead the team through that, sometimes things like that can weigh on a team, and especially on its players. And sometimes their faith in the coach, right?
Absolutely. I was just making a joke about Kawhi being the only reason the Raptors have.
No, but Nick Nurse did do a lot for the Raptors, and you see it. You see it every year. You see a coach like just rally a team and bring them together. Like the Knicks coach, like he won Coach of the Year, did he not? I can't remember. His name.
Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, like he that was a huge. Like people forget that was a huge deal. The Knicks haven't been to the playoffs in like 2012.
Hadn't had a winning season since 2013.
That was Melo era. Yeah, Brian Melo.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
Yep. I guess moving on. Yeah, the Phoenix Suns are hopeful of an early return for CP3. They feel as though it is more likely that he clears protocols sooner rather than later. Obviously, protocols being 10 to 14 days, or if you test negative. We're still unsure if he's vaccinated or once, twice, not vaccinated.
Do they think he's going to be back by the end of the series?
I think that's
what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, they won without him, so like I can't imagine they play game
Monster
2 tomorrow
performance by
night,
Devin
right?
Booker, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's been a constant. This whole playoffs has been fucking insane performance.
Yeah, but this was a little bit above. This was his first triple-double.
Yeah, but this is like his fourth 40-point game of the playoffs?
Yeah.
Third or fuck.
He needs to. If they want to win this series without CP3, he's gonna have to play like that almost every night.
Yeah, but we've seen he can put the team on his back, right?
I definitely think he can steal a couple games while they wait for CP. He stole the first one.
Yeah, no, he definitely can steal a game. I mean, I think CP3 coming back and maybe Kawhi, if he was to happen to come back, those are going to be the big deciding factors of how this series turns out. If one of them comes back and one of them doesn't, it's going to be really like, I don't want to say lopsided, but it is going to be lopsided. Beck, you might want to mute your mic there, bud. But yeah, that's kind of what I think is that that's how it's going to go.
Two big factors that could possibly decide the series, right?
I mean, arguably the best player on both teams is out, or not best, but most important.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly probably true, and we've seen it through Game 1 that the Clippers rely more on Kawhi than the Suns do on Chris Paul. And it's clear because Kawhi is the best player on his team, and ultimately I'd say Devin Booker is the best player in his.
Yeah,
and he's
I would
playing
too.
in the series, right?
I agree with that.
Too. I don't think the Phoenix Suns missing CP is as big of a deal as the Clippers missing Kawhi, as we clearly saw in Game 1.
Stepped up.
I mean, but like they literally almost lost to the fucking Jazz. Like they came within one game of losing to the Jazz. Like
they were a 30-point comeback. It took
like
a 30-point comeback.
It was an insane game, but like they were close to elimination. They were not like comfortable by any means.
Yeah. I think it's really turned into just sort of a race between who's going to come back. I know Kawhi's status is a little more unclear, but obviously Kawhi's return would swing the series in a huge way.
Definitely.
For the Clippers, as would Chris Paul coming back to the Suns, right?
Because not only is that someone that puts up a majority amount of your points, that's someone who locks down Devin Booker. And
There's two different pieces to both teams that are really key for both teams winning.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I definitely think Kawhi Leonard has a bigger impact on the series, but that's still CP would too, but not as big as Kawhi.
Absolutely. I mean, they are kind of both similar players in their respective positions. I mean, they're both kind of defensive and offensive, like two-way players. Chris Paul's a great defensive point guard, on-ball defender. Kawhi's obviously one of the greatest defenders of all time. In saying that, I think with Kawhi out, the Clippers have done a really, really good job of rallying and stepping up for him.
No, they have for sure, but like
especially Terrence Mann, Paul George is pretty much just got rid of that entire playoff P mantra that was behind him. I mean, that's passed on to, as Beck would say, Porzingis. He made that joke the other day.
And I think it's fucking Ben Simmons now.
Playoff B.
Playoff B.
Pandemic P, man. There's always got to be one now.
Pandemic B.
Pandemic B. Yeah. Moving on and sticking with the Suns. Suns GM James Jones was named the Executive of the Year. Obviously,
the biggest award in the league. The one that people wait for.
Probably like the most, not say most legitimate award, but that award's more voted on by your peers, right? Like that.
Honestly, fair. Yeah, but if you look at it like that.
I'd much rather be voted on by my peers than by a media who takes a more neutral viewpoint to it, right?
Beck, what you're saying basically is you'd rather win Executive of the Year than MVP. Is pretty much what you're saying.
I mean, I'm going to go with the classic response and say I'd rather win a title.
I bet there's a lot of Executives of the Year in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, James Harden played through a grade 2 hamstring strain in the series that just came out. We know that the Nets kept that under wraps for a while and that he did have a reoccurring injury from the regular season. So if anyone was looking for an explanation there you have it.
And he was still putting up 20 points.
No, he wasn't.
No, he was not.
No,
he was not.
He was really
he was not.
That he played back where he was playing.
He dropped 5
points. He scored 5 points, Justin.
5 points in Game 6.
5 points.
I think Game 7 he had a little more.
I'm looking right
overtime.
Now. I want to say it's under 20.
I can tell you right now, James Harden was on the court for one reason and one
22.
reason only, and it was to take attention away from
KD. And it worked to an extent, right?
They took him to overtime.
I think it kept them in the series. Because if they only had to worry about KD and Bruce Brown offensively, I mean, somebody can walk up.
It ultimately came down to fucking KD not bringing his foot back, and then the Bucks just took them out in overtime.
Yeah.
Like overtime wasn't even close.
It came down to KD's shoe being a size 19 and not an 18.
KD's big feet are the reason the Brooklyn Nets lost the championship. Lost the fucking
totally 100%.
But I mean, he had a couple fucking like in overtime, he had a couple shots that would have tied it or put them up with the lead with under a minute left, and he bricked like all of them.
Yeah, there were several situations I think on both sides where
he choked a little bit. He choked a little bit. Like, I guess it's hard to say you choke when you have a 48-point game. Like, he played fucking lights out, but like in the shots that mattered to win the game, he choked a little bit.
Yeah, and he just wasn't hitting them.
And it's like it happens. Like, it's basketball. That shit happens. It's just
guys don't shoot 80% from the field. Like,
no.
It's not like expected to hit that shot necessarily.
No, exactly.
Well, when you're Kevin Durant and you're the guy and it's overtime in game 7, you kind of do expect him to hit the shot.
You expect him to have the better chance.
If that was MJ, Kobe, LeBron, you would expect them to hit the shot.
So. Yeah, but they've missed game-winning shots too.
Yeah, but that's I'm just saying. Like I said that it happens, but it's just
it's unfortunate, but I don't think it speaks to KD not being clutch.
So
what clutch has he done in his career? Like I'm not saying he hasn't won championships and MVPs, but what like clutch shots has he made that you can remember like off the top of your head? Because I can think of like 6 for Kobe, LeBron, and MJ.
KD hit the game 5 dagger for the Warriors in the 2018 title game against the Cavs. But let's be honest, that was an absolute wash.
Yeah.
But going back to Luke's point, and I have to agree there, the most clutch instances we've seen from KD have come from this past series. And I think if you're ranking some of those shots, like we have obviously what he did in, what was it, game 5? Game 5 was it, where they won in Brooklyn? And he played all 48 minutes and 47-point triple-double.
He put that team on his back.
He's never been known as a clutch dude. He's been known as a dude who puts up a lot of points and like is the guy that scores a lot of points on your team, but he's never been known as a clutch guy.
He's a guy that you know that if you need a bucket, you can go to him.
Of course, he's a walking bucket, but like he's never been known as clutch, and he has never done much.
I don't think he's ever really been in a position to be clutch other than this last series. No. Like not as much.
How many finals has he been in? How many playoff runs has he been in? Like
how many game 7s has he been in where there's been an instance?
It doesn't even have to be game 7. It could be any game in the playoffs. It's still clutch. It could be regular season.
I know, but you remember the big game 7 buzzer beaters as clutch.
You remember like
clutch shots. You just don't remember them because they're not as great as, let's say, MJ hitting the shot, the Kawhi shot, shots like that. You just don't remember them because there's another game after. If they lose, it doesn't matter.
If Kevin Durant was a guy that has hit a lot of those shots, he'd be known as a guy who hits a lot of those shots, and he's not.
Okay, let's say, but
if KD had,
I'm not hating on KD. I'm not saying KD's not a great player.
If KD hit that last shot, would that have been a clutch moment?
Of course, I would not be saying what I'm saying right now because the Nets would still be in the playoffs, and that would have been like probably the clutchest moment of Kevin Durant's career.
So far, the clutchest moment of Kevin Durant's career, I believe, was the game when they won in Brooklyn, when he played all 48 minutes and put that team on his.
And that's what I'm saying. Like he's been in the league for how many years now, and his most clutch moments are coming like now.
Yeah.
Over his career, he's never been known as a clutch dude. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's just not known as a clutch player.
There's something to be said though about like making those fourth quarter shots and having those opportunities to win it. But what Durant did in Game 5, that's still clutch. I'd say there's a clutch element to what Kevin Durant did in Game 7. Like there wasn't like when the epitome of clutch comes out, Kevin Durant didn't really step up to the plate. But 48 points on that team in Game 7 against the Bucks is still very much clutch.
I guarantee you, if you ask Kevin Durant if he would have rather missed every shot in the game but hit those last 2 to win it, or scored his 48 and done what happened, he would choose scoring like 4 points any day of the week. Because clutch players hit clutch shots no matter how many minutes they've played. And we've seen that time and time and again. And
I think
he just couldn't
the other thing you're referring to, Luke, in terms of clutch, and we've talked about it before, we talked about it last episode, is that Kevin Durant has always been at his best when the stakes have been not the highest.
Exactly. When he has no stress, when he's in a low stress situation, that's when Kevin Durant does his best work.
As much as KD wants to be the guy, and that's a large reason as to why he went to Brooklyn, because it was always the Warriors and KD. The fact that he is now that guy, that clutch factor is more under the microscope. So I think there's a bit of like an impartial view there. I'm not going to say KD's not a clutch player. I'm not going to tell you he's on the level that someone would say Kobe would be. But look, all of those guys, all of those clutch players in history have missed shots. I just think on the biggest stage, Kevin Durant hasn't done that.
Kevin Durant wants to be a top 5, top 10 player, whatever the fuck. A top 10, top 5 player makes those shots no matter, like, he wasn't heavily guarded.
They don't make all of those shots.
No, but in game 7 in the playoffs, you make those shots.
How many shots did Kobe miss? How many shots did Jordan miss?
Not a lot in the playoffs.
Not a lot tie games.
Not
it's
a lot
more than you think. You just don't hear about it because the ones that they do hit are a bigger deal.
Exactly. So if KD had hit those shots in his career, it'd be a less big of a deal because it's he just missed a couple shots, but he's never been known as that type of guy, and he was put in that role in game 7 and he couldn't do it. And that's all the point I'm trying to make, and you can't disagree because
he didn't do it once. Name one
other
time
that's
he was in
all
a
the point
and he missed.
That's all the point I'm trying to make. He's never been known as that type of guy. He got put in that situation and he couldn't do it. That's all the point I'm trying to make, and it's right.
I think
I disagree with you because I feel like he hasn't been put in those situations where his back
exactly, which means he's not known as a clutch player because he's never put in clutch situations. There's a reason for that.
I think
you can be a clutch player without hitting buzzer beaters.
It's not even buzzer beaters. It's just fucking like
game 6 just makes him a clutch player. Then it's one of the greatest playoff performances of all time.
Cooks, I get what you're saying, bud. But remember when they were playing the Raptors and KD came back and he had 14 points or something in however many minutes, 5 minutes or something stupid like that. And then he got injured again. Like, the Raptors were not winning that game if he was still playing.
That was in the first quarter of that game.
Yeah. But that doesn't define it as not clutch. Clutch is in fourth quarter. The game is clutch.
That's 14 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, but if he had played that whole game, that was a completely different...
Did the Warriors lose by more than 14?
No, but if he had stayed in and played the rest of the game, it would have been completely different.
Sure, but that's hypothetical. It didn't happen. He got injured. It happens, but that's hype. You can't argue with fact with hypotheticals.
I think one thing that, and I think there obviously is two sides to the argument, but Luke, there is much more to, has Kevin Durant not always performed in the most clutch situations? Yes, but at the same time, and many people will say it, and I say it, if I want someone to get me a bucket, I'm giving Kevin Durant the ball. It's that simple. And there is a clutch factor to that because Kevin Durant, more often than not, does get you buckets when you need buckets. But did he get you the buckets in the fourth quarter?
Technically,
not so much this game.
He threw it to overtime and then just couldn't do anything in overtime.
Yeah.
And even that's still clutch.
And they were outmatched at that point. Harden's playing on one leg. Kyrie's out. That's not a super team. KD isn't a super team with an injured Harden.
You're right, but if he wants to be the guy that carries the team through that, and he wasn't.
Yeah. I think
you can't expect anyone to carry the team through that.
Many players have won championships doing that.
I really don't think so.
You can think that.
I don't think there's a team in history where if you take the two second best players.
Kevin Durant is the best player on that team.
I said the 2 second best, the number 2 and 3. If you take Pippen and Rodman away from Jordan, does Jordan win those championships?
He won 2 without. He won 2 without Rodman.
I'm talking about all of them though.
The whole team.
The question should be: does Jordan win 6 championships without Rodman and Pippen?
Probably not.
Okay.
So the other point that I was going to make before you stepped in there is that we saw the last time we saw Kevin Durant be the guy. Game 6 Clay happened, and then Game 7 happened at Golden State. So there is that to it as well. And then we saw KD play his best basketball after he left the Thunder in a position where he was the guy. and play his best basketball in a setting where
You think he was the guy on that Warriors team?
No,
Yes.
not on the Warriors team, on the Thunder.
Oh, yeah. He was the guy on the Thunder, yeah.
Yeah, the year before he left for the Warriors, they were up 3-2 in OKC, and we all know what happened in Game 6. Game 6 Clay.
Yeah.
And there is a clutch factor there when you have 2 games to close it out, and KD is your guy to get a bucket.
And he couldn't do it.
Well, and they lose, right?
And they lost. Because you don't remember, at the end of the day, when you look back on the series, you don't remember how many points the player scored. You remember if they hit the shot or if they impacted the game. They remember who won the game. And they remember why they won the game and what players made them win the game.
Okay, so when you think of that game in Brooklyn, then that Game 5 in Brooklyn where KD put that team on his back,
but no one thinks about Game 5. People think about the Game 7 that they lost.
Yeah, but you can't blame him on the Game 7 that they lost when his 2 co-stars are.
I never said that it was Kevin Durant's fault that they lost. Did I say that once?
But you're saying that other players would have carried that team through.
Do I think that other players would have made those shots? Yeah, I do, but that doesn't mean I think it's Kevin Durant's fault that they lost. If all 3 of those players had been in, they probably wouldn't have lost. But I
think KD brought them farther than most players would have brought them in that series.
Yeah,
I disagree.
I do not.
I disagree.
If you're going for players in the league right now,
he never said that
on that team than KD.
He never said in the league right now.
No, but I'm just saying, like right now in the league, if you were to substitute KD for anyone else, who would you pick?
Well, that's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's not really the point, but at the same time,
that's a different discussion. That's a complete different discussion.
I don't think Kobe drags that team through Game 7. I don't think Jordan does. I don't think LeBron does.
I disagree.
I think 2016 LeBron does.
I think that 1990 fucking 4 Michael Jordan does. I think 2000 and fucking 8, 9, or fucking 01 Kobe does.
I think
but the thing about that is they didn't have.
I think Jordan, any 90s version of Jordan does.
When you have 2 co-stars and that is your team, when you have Kyrie and Harden playing on 25% probably.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant has always had to rely on, but he's always played better with other players. And then you take those other players away and he fucking can't do it.
Everyone does. That's the whole point I'm making. Jordan doesn't win 6 chips without Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen.
But it's one game. We're talking about one game. We're talking about one game here.
Okay, but it was 7 games. That was a series. He brought it to 7 games.
How did Steph do with Clay and KD out against the Raptors?
They lost.
Yeah.
So
against the Raptors.
The Raptors didn't have any business winning that championship.
Clay went out in the finals, did he not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Clay went out in Game 6.
In Game 6, he played 5 games, bro.
Yeah,
he was there for a majority of the
Curry
series.
had co-stars getting him to that Game 6.
And KD did it by himself to Game 7.
Kyrie played the first game. Harden played on 25%. Collectively, they played less games than they played. Or didn't play less games than didn't play more games than they played.
Yeah.
And that team,
okay, who's the best player on Brooklyn?
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant, yeah.
And Beck made the point that in overtime, if you have the ball, you're going to Kevin Durant, and he missed the 2 shots. He
missed 2 shots.
Yeah, and those were the 2 shots to win the game. They're the most important shots of the game, and he missed them. It happens.
It doesn't mean he's not clutch and he's not the guy. He got them to Game 7,
and he lost. And now
by himself. That team doesn't even. If you take KD off the floor, that's not a series. That doesn't even go to overtime without KD. That speaks to the clutch. KD missed 2 shots at the end of the game, but you have to respect the clutchness of what he did the entire series. He put that team on his back through that series.
I think we're thinking about clutch in 2 different ways here, but
no, I get what you're saying with hitting that last shot. But if he shoots that again, he might hit it. Jordan didn't hit all of his clutch shots. He missed them more time than he hit them. That's a fact.
Yeah, but game-winning shots.
Yes.
He definitely hit more than he lost. In the playoffs, in the finals, or in the playoffs.
Don't remember the ones that he missed when he could have won.
That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Everyone's going to remember the 2 shots that Kevin Durant missed, and no one's going to remember the entire series he carried them through. And that's that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't fucking know. I don't know. Do you know?
More than Kevin Durant.
I don't know.
I don't
No.
know, way more than Kevin Durant.
The Bulls
Yes.
went to Game 7 one time against fucking the Pacers. When they won championships or overall?
Just overall.
I don't actually know, to be honest with you.
So Jordan played 3 Game 7s in his career.
How many
How
KD
many did
play?
KD play?
I'm gonna say 4. That's my guess. 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm saying 3.
Kevin Durant has played in 4 Game 7s in his career.
Okay.
So
So-
one more.
Is that counting the Game 7 where he played 5 minutes? Sorry.
That's. Oh yeah, that is counting
Yeah.
the games.
Yeah. So
But you were. Well, you said that he made a impactful impact in that game. Apparently,
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
he
for
did.
the 5 minutes.
so that
he
counts.
played.
So that counts as a Game 7, then, does it not?
Not
that
a
he
full
played
Game
in.
7.
Yeah, but
Okay, so
my
him-
whole
so-
argument is that he's being put in situations that he's had to be clutch less than Jordan was.
Well, you just heard that he's been in the same amount of Game 7s apparently, or one more if you count the one you played 15 minutes.
Okay,
in.
but the other part of that question is how many of those came
back
down to
back
the wire?
back.
Yes.
How many of those Game 7s did Mike win versus KD?
Mike was 3-0 in his Game 7s.
And what's KD?
3-1.
Really? That's
Yeah,
the first Game
3-1.
7 he's ever lost? Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. KD played.
Well, how's that possible then? Because they lost that one game to the Raptors, and then they lost.
That
last
was
night.
Game 6.
Game 6.
Oh, true.
Oh, so he didn't even play in Game 7.
So we didn't even play in that
Oh,
Game
okay.
7. Oh,
that
okay.
doesn't even apply.
That
No.
series didn't even go 7. They won it in 6.
Yeah,
6
that's. I think that's why
Oh,
we
yeah,
thought
they
it was
did.
Game
Yeah,
7 because that's the
that's what I
game
thought
they
it was
won
Game
it.
7.
No, that sounded right to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he went with one with Brooklyn, one with OKC, and one with the Warriors.
Let me
Luke,
break
in
this
your
down for
opinion,
you.
How many game-winning shots do you think Michael Jordan hit in his career?
In the playoffs or overall?
Nope, in total. I'll give you an over-under, 50.
Under probably.
Okay, over-under 25.
Right on 25.
Over, but not by much.
Right
9.
on 25. Stop the cap.
In his whole career?
9 game-winning shots.
I don't think that's true.
Look it up.
That might be in the playoffs, not in his whole career. I don't think that's true.
No.
The
You're probably looking at buzzer beaters because I will.
Sorry, yeah,
look at-
game-winning buzzer beaters is what I was getting at.
Well, I never said buzzer beaters, man. I just said game-winning shots. I've just said game-winning shots. They don't have to be buzzer beaters.
$25. You're right, Beck. I know you Googled it, but
Yep.
And then how many does KD have?
So that's what I'm trying to find right now.
Also, what season is KD in?
I want to say he's in season. Came into the league in 2006.
Six?
No, he came in 2006. It says
He's in year
Kevin
15. He's in year 15. He's already
Yeah.
played 2 more seasons than Mike. Just putting that out there.
Kevin Durant has 5 game winners in his career.
buzzer beaters probably.
No, game winners.
Yes.
We'll
Are you
clarify that.
hammered? Give me
Clarify
a break.
that. How many game winners, not buzzer beaters, just game winners?
Yep. Game winners, 5 out of 14 attempts.
There you go.
How many attempts did Jordan take? Because if you're going to
Kevin
do that,
Durant has
I-
already played 2 more seasons than Jordan.
Yeah, but it's the percentage that I'm looking for here. So if he's 5 for 14, what was Jordan?
Let's say he was 25 for 38.
There's no chance.
That's my guess.
There's no way he shot 55% in the clutch. I'm sorry.
At game winners, not like game winners.
I get that, but at the same time,
But
I get that Jordan's more clutch than Durant. I'm just saying that Kevin Durant is clutch.
Sure, but he's not clutch to the
Because
point where
what do you like? It also depends how you define a game-winning shot.
Here.
the last shot of the game that wins the team the game. That's what I define
Okay.
the game-winning shot as.
So listen, Kevin Durant has had 14 attempts at game winners in his career, has hit 5. That comes out to 37.5%. And Brent, your numbers actually match up in what you said with Michael Jordan, in that Michael Jordan has what is now considered a modern-day game winner. He has 9, but he also shot 50% on his game winners and was 9 of 18.
Okay. I never said KD was more clutch than Jordan, though, Luke. That's not my point.
No, but my whole point was that a player like that would have made that shot. And Kevin, you've said before, Kevin Durant's not top 10. He's not top, and that's a part of the reason.
No, I never said Kevin Durant's not top 10. I just think you're underestimating his clutch ability.
I think if what you're
he can carry teams through games, and he can put up a staggering amount of points. And I said that at the start of this argument. But when it comes down to clutch time, game 7, hitting game whatever the fuck, hitting shots to win series, he couldn't do it. And he's never been put in situations to do that because he's never been the guy that's been relied on to do that. And when he has, he shot what was it? 4 for what? Sorry. 4 for 19. 5 out of 14. Sorry.
5 for 14.
But that last shot isn't the only thing to define clutch. That's not. But
I'm not.
Clutch is.
Oh, that's the okay.
You can't tell me that's the definition of clutch. A clutch.
Okay, Clem, you're right. You're right, bud. Okay, you're right. Let's move on.
Okay, okay, whatever. I don't really care. I'm just telling you that that's not the definition.
You clearly do care because you're still talking about it.
Because you're wrong. You're giving the wrong definition of clutch. Look up the definition of clutch in basketball. It's in the last 8 minutes.
Where do you think the Sixers went wrong yesterday, other than the Sixers?
So, listen, the definition of clutch time or crunch time in the NBA, known in the NBA, comes in the last 5 minutes when the point spread is under 5 points. That is clutch time.
5 minutes?
Right? Yeah, 5 minutes.
When the point spread is 5 points or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
See, I thought there's a couple different and that's variations. It can be 8 minutes with 10 points or less, which I have heard. That's why I said that.
Okay.
Where are you reading that off, Beck?
That's just my general understanding of clutch time.
I agree with you. That's why I'm asking, because that's what I'm thinking when I talk about clutch.
But you're talking Kevin Durant's not good in those situations.
He has never been put in those situations. Then he got put in that situation, and he fucking couldn't.
But your whole point is that he's not clutch because he doesn't hit the buzzer beaters in the last shot. But he's still good in those moments.
You keep saying buzzer beaters, but I never said buzzer beaters, man.
Sorry, last shot. Take buzzer beater out of the equation. Last shot is not the only shots taken in those minutes. Kevin Durant, without Kevin Durant, the Nets aren't in that position. They don't have that last shot.
But the overtime was how long is the overtime? 5 minutes. So the entire overtime,
5 minutes.
The entire overtime was considered clutch time. He had 3 opportunities, couldn't make any of them. What was Kevin Durant's percentage in game overtime last night? Since we're gonna still talk about this.
Oh God, I don't know. I didn't even know we were gonna go here, guys.
Neither did I, but I've tried to move on. But
all right, so listen. I have for you a list of 20 of the greatest clutch shooters of all time. All right. And I will scroll through the list for you because I already can tell you that I haven't seen KD. All right.
I didn't say KD's a top 20 clutch player of all time. I just said he's not clutch.
And I never said he wasn't clutch either, but I said he's not clutch to that. He's not clutch to that.
I'm not saying he's as clutch as MJ or anything.
And that's all I'm trying.
What's your argument?
Let's just move the fuck on, man. I'm over this.
Kevin Durant, as according to Fadeaway World, which is obviously just its own media page, has Kevin Durant ranked 7th of all time in clutch shooting. All right. He's higher in playoff win shares than Curry. He's ranked 9th in compared to Curry's 11th. Durant's postseason stat line, obviously improved now, is... Oh, sorry. I'll read this off for you instead. Game 7, Durant averages 33.3 points on 55% shooting.
Yeah, all right. He's fucking amazing. But my point is that he doesn't play well in crunch time, and he hasn't. He didn't last night.
The entire game 7 is crunch time. That entire game is
we literally just heard the definition of crunch time.
I get that, but game 7 is still playing that entire game. and putting that team on his back to get it to overtime is clutch in itself, is my point.
Okay.
Which, if you can't agree with that, you're not seeing my
Clem.
side of it at all. I'm not saying he hits the big shots, the last second buzzer beaters, the game-winning shots necessarily, but you can't say he's not clutch.
In the playoffs, in clutch time. Are we in clutch time? Yeah. So in the clutch here, Paul George obviously played the most games in the clutch. Highest field goal percentages this season in the playoffs.
Did you say Paul George?
Yeah, Paul George
season,
played
this
9
season.
games.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
season.
This season. In clutch time, Paul George has played the most games with 9. I can't find Kevin Durant here for. Actually, if I go back to games played, maybe I can find him. I'm just trying to find his field goal percentage in clutch games in this postseason. Kevin Durant, 4 games in the clutch, 40% field goal percentage in the clutch.
It's not bad.
No.
Not bad. League average field goal percentage this year is 49% in regular time, all things considered.
But you have to also consider the fact that he's the only person of attention on that court.
Yeah, no, he certainly garnered more attention. But this was also the most clutch of situations for him to perform. And obviously, he didn't perform up to a similar standard of Jordan. And that doesn't mean he's not clutch. He's just not on that echelon. And that is
I never said he was
to get to.
And that was my entire point. My entire point was that Kevin Durant, I said from the start, Kevin Durant's an amazing player that has carried teams through series, and he scores more points than anybody. And all respect Kevin Durant deserves, he gets from me. But when he is the guy in clutch time, he couldn't do it last night. And he has never been put in that situation before because he's never been that guy to hit shots in clutch time when the game's on the line, and he couldn't do it. And that's the whole point I was trying to make. And I don't know why we've been talking about this for 25 minutes now, but we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Sure.
Agree to disagree.
So kind of following the tense subject there a little bit, it's rumored that Kemba Walker and Brad Stevens had a tension-filled relationship in their last season, which doesn't surprise me, all things considered, of Kemba. I think a lot was expected of him replacing Kyrie. And ultimately, we did see that, Kemba wasn't living up to a billing when they traded him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Celtics basically, came in. Kyrie left, Kemba came in. Similar price point, similar expectations, shot-creating guard. Obviously dealt with his own injury ailments in the past with his knees this year. But what do you guys think? The Celtics ended up trading Kemba, the 16th pick, and a 2025 second for Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second from the Thunder.
It's good on Boston's end. Like, Al Horford's contract is pretty shitty, but like second round pick
better
nice.
than Kemba's.
Yeah, exactly. It's less of a cap hit than Kemba's.
Partially guaranteed at $14.5 million for next season too, which is huge because that only kicks in if the Celtics end up making the NBA Finals, and then further on if they win the chip.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think the Celtics want to see themselves as championship contenders.
I don't hate that.
No, I think there's still a lot to be done though for them.
For sure.
I also think the other problem with that deal is, as much as I do like the deal, I am a fan of it. It does block Robert Williams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, the counter argument is, where else could the Celtics have gone, acquired a similarly bad contract, because we know it was swapping of bad contracts, and get, say, even a guard, right? Because Kemba's probably their best bet as a guard on a bad contract.
I didn't even know they could make trades until playoffs were over.
Yeah.
So
their playoffs are over.
Yeah, so technically their season,
it's their off season, right? It's like the off season market obviously isn't huge yet, but like it is the off season for most teams.
Yep. The other thing too to think about as well is that and this is my understanding, is that you can make trades like as a non-playoff team. However, these trades won't come into effect until the new league year.
Yeah,
essentially.
It's basically your off season. It starts whenever you're eliminated.
Yeah, unless it's a draft day trade and you're trading picks, this trade won't be finalized until the new league year. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I don't know what Moses Brown's going to look like. That's another one. I really like that pickup, but then again, Robert Williams, right? So but also that 2023 second from the Thunder could turn into what could be an early second round kind of pick, right? Which turns in similar to a late first rounder. So I think, all things considered, I liked it. I don't know what else they could have done,
I agree that their backs were kind of up against the wall and they had to do something. I'm not a huge fan of the trade. I get where you're coming from, and it was a good trade in the situation. I just don't think it was a good trade necessarily overall.
No, they probably traded the best player in the deal, right?
Yeah, and we've seen how that works out in the past in every sport.
I feel like they definitely could have held on to Kemba and waited a little bit to see their options a little more. But I guess with the circumstances, they got what they got, right?
Yeah. I have a pretty strong feeling as though there was also some desire from Kemba to get out of that situation too. I think there was a lot expected of him, and I think it was a little premature. And
I totally agree with that. I don't think Kemba's necessarily that guy that can come in and change a team and make them a contender. There's very few players that do that. And Kemba, obviously, I don't want to say he's over the hill in his career-wise, but he's getting there. He's getting to the point where he's not doing what he was doing in Charlotte.
No.
It doesn't look good, does it?
And he spent most of his insane years in Charlotte, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, he kind of wasted his career away a little bit in Charlotte. He's obviously a great player. But you know how it is.
It happens, right?
Yeah. It's simply a matter of changing expectations, and that Kemba was the guy in a situation where not a lot was expected of that franchise. And a similar impact was expected in Boston, where expectations were higher, and simply it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
He just
didn't
meet expectations. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope. And it happens.
I think he'll do well in OKC. I like it for OKC because they weren't playing Al Horford to begin with. They sat him down for the rest of the year, which, I mean, from a fantasy perspective, I'm not a huge fan of it. Unfortunate for some deeper leagues, obviously. But I think bringing in the young guys and giving them the reins a little bit and let them develop as much as possible was probably the right move. From a franchise statement, obviously OKC is going to, in about 5 to 10 years, they're going to be a very, very strong team. I think we've talked about that before.
Depending on those sixth graders.
Yeah. Depending on the sixth graders, they've got lined up for in picks already, but we know there's going to be a lot of really, really good picks.
Yeah. We've also seen we know they have a good drafting history. We saw the 2012 team that they had a little bit ahead of its time. We've also seen more recently the impact that Chris Paul had on a guy like Shea. I think Kemba's going to have a similar, not a similar impact, but he'll be very helpful in Shea's development in another way. But I also think too, we saw what Chris Paul was when he arrived in OKC and what he was billed at. It was a dump. He was being dumped because of his contract. And ultimately what showed that he still had it, elevated that team, and found himself in a better situation in OKC, with a brighter future because of that trade of Chris Paul. And I think that's what OKC is banking on here with Kemba. I think
they're going to try and do something similar. Obviously they get probably the best player in the trade. Well, I'd say he is the best player in the trade as of right now. And they're really, OKC is really not losing that much because they weren't even playing Al Horford. So that's really just a matching contract almost, matching salary, which obviously is necessary in a deal like that when you dump someone like Kemba Walker, who's got a massive contract.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. I don't love the trade. I don't hate the trade that much. I think it's really what they could have done in that circumstance. And
It's
in the
lateral.
circumstance, yeah, you got what you got. You can't really be upset with it.
No, exactly.
So
Go
was
ahead.
that another point on Kemba? Or?
No, I was about to move on, but have you got something?
No, I was about to just transition it into what this episode is about, mainly. Obviously, last night, the 76ers were defeated by the Atlanta Hawks in Game 7 of what is not exactly not exactly what we expected. I don't think many people had Atlanta beating even maybe the Knicks, no less the 76ers, the number 1 seed in the East. Obviously, Atlanta played pretty well. Ben Simmonds played like absolute fucking dog shit.
Wow.
I don't expect to see Ben Simmonds moved, but I kind of want to get your guys' take on that. Starting with you, Beck.
Let me say a few things about this Hawks team and then about this Sixers team, because I was really intrigued by what I saw and I wanted to dive into it. So I want to get your guys' takes on some of these things too. So simply, like, flat out, we know that there was a huge reliance on some players in the Sixers, and it simply comes down to, so I've got a winning formula, but I've also got the most basic stat, which is bench points. Atlanta outscored these guys 42.4 to 28 in bench points every single night.
Which is crazy
Wow.
because that's a crazy stat, especially considering the Sixers were considered to be a really deep team.
Yeah, for all the work the Sixers put into their bench, acquiring George Hill, like drafting Matisse Thybulle, drafting Tyrese Maxey, these guys who were supposed to be spark plug type players, it didn't work. And it was clear. In only one game did the Sixers bench actually score. Oh, sorry, no. In one game, the Sixers had more guys with 10 plus points. That's it. One game.
Yeah.
So the Sixers, it's so clear because they've been trying it and they failed, but it only became more apparent with obviously what happened with Ben Simmons is they need guys who can create their own shot and take the load off Joel Embiid. It's very simple.
It's kind of time that experiment failed.
Yeah.
I really don't think I don't think Ben Simmons is the best fit for that team. He could go a couple places. I personally think he'll be back in Philly. I don't think they're going to look to move him necessarily, but
he's not going anywhere for at least a couple of years.
He doesn't have the trade value either to make the Sixers a better team without the Sixers sacrificing too much at this point.
Everyone else in the league doesn't value him as high as Philadelphia does, and that's a contract that no one else is going to take on unless he gets better and gains some more trade value.
It's also come to the point now where, as good as he is on defense, because we know what he is on defense, his liabilities on offense now outweigh what he does on defense.
Yeah,
and it's blatantly obvious.
Absolutely. I mean, 5 points. Are you fucking kidding me?
Not even that. He shot the ball 4 times as a point guard.
Yeah, that's brutal.
He went 33% from the free throw line as a fucking point guard. Like, that's atrocious.
In the 7 games that they played in the fourth quarter, 5 times Ben Simmons did not take a single shot in the fourth quarter.
Dude, he either needs to switch to small forward or fucking learn how to play basketball. Because, like, the fact that he's a point guard belittles me, other than the fact that he's a really, really good defender. Especially he's like one of the only like guards in the league that can defend at the rim or he can defend in the perimeter. But that doesn't mean that doesn't excuse a point guard to shoot the ball 5 times and score fucking 4 points. Like, it's in a game 7. That's fucking atrocious.
And if anything, the one thing that Ben Simmons has gotten credit for most offensively in the league has been his playmaking ability. But it's simply gotten to the point where more and more often, it's simply Ben Simmons making the right basketball play. And it's not creativity or like fakes or anything like that, because we know Ben Simmons isn't going to. It's a kick out because that's exactly what you're supposed to do, and they make the shot. And the reason he gets so many assists is because he's in that instance so many times. Now, I can't say legitimately once that Ben Simmons got an assist because he was a threat to score or appeared as though he was going to score and simply move the ball. It's very, very seldom.
Dude, the Hawks weren't even defending him on offense half the time. He literally had a wide open dunk in front of Trae Young and fucking passed the ball off and they missed the shot. Like,
Yeah.
he's two Trae Youngs. He should be able to slam the ball on Trae Young, and he didn't even fucking do it. He just made eye contact and shed the ball away.
A Trae Young on the other side of the restricted area.
Ben Simmonds is... I'm sorry, Philadelphia fans. I know you're probably feeling the same way I am. He's a fucking joke right now, to be honest with you. Like, well, regular season, whatever. But that entire series, he was a fucking joke. Like, he needs to change to fucking small forward or
power forward.
He's too small to be a power forward.
No, he's not. He's 6'10".
He's not height wise, but like he's not like he doesn't have a lot of fucking. He's not like built like a power forward. I'd say he'd make a good small forward. Either or though, like depends on the team he plays on.
I've heard things too about like Doc Rivers and the coaching, and I know I've made jokes about like Doc Rivers coaching on Last Chance U and all this stuff, like blowing leads in series. But look, this one is more blatantly obvious than ever that Doc Rivers took 72 games of this year's season and made the 76ers work. It was pretty clear they made it work, right? And now with 72 games under his belt, heads into a series against the Knicks where they don't have to score much. Well, sorry, not the Knicks. Who did they play in the first round again?
Who
did the Sixers play in the first round?
Put me on the spot like that.
Wizards. Yeah, the Wizards.
Listen. Ben Simmons did exactly what he needed to do against Bradley Beal or Russell Westbrook one of those nights, and no one thought anything of it because the Wizards couldn't score enough in other places to make the Sixers keep up to them. The Sixers really set the pace in that series. But in a series where you're playing arguably the deepest team in basketball in the Atlanta Hawks, in nights where they had 4 or 5 or sometimes maybe even 6 guys going for 10-plus points in a night, and you have Trae Young shooting the ball from half court, the Sixers need to score the ball to keep up with a team like that. Because as good as defense is at this point, offensive players are just better and are going to score.
Joel Embiid does not give you enough offense to carry you through a series.
No. And you make a great point there because I'm going to bring this up because excluding game 1, the Sixers needed Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid all to score 20-plus points. All of them. 3 of them to score 20-plus points. And the whole team, the rest of the team, needed to shoot 35% plus. That is a lot to win a game.
That doesn't happen every night.
No, and that is borderline inexcusable for that to happen every night. Because we saw it happen. We saw game 4 happen, where probably the Hawks' most dominant game, and Embiid shoots 17 on 20%. And Curry goes for 70, and they lose by almost double digits. Like, don't get me wrong, they kept it close, and their defense was good. But that was a game.
That's the only thing that remotely kept them in it was their defense.
Yeah.
But even like they got in like more than halfway through the series, and guys like Gallinari and that ginger dude, I'm sorry, I can't remember his fucking name.
Kevin Huerter.
Kevin Huerter. They were heating up, and the Sixers just didn't defend them. They just left them open and didn't rush to the perimeter.
Trae Young didn't
to
even play great in that game.
No, because honestly, if anybody on that Hawks team has upped their value tremendously, it's Gallinari. Gallinari has been playing lights out the entire playoffs, and he's been a huge reason they've had so much success. Like they're leaving these dudes just unguarded because they aren't realizing that they're heating up, and then they're just torching them.
I think the best way to look at it is when the shot clock wound down, the Atlanta Hawks really, unless it was Clint Capella, really didn't care who had the ball in their hands. And they were confident that they could get a good shot.
Yeah, totally.
And you look at a team like the Sixers, they don't run plays for Seth Curry. Seth Curry is a catch and shoot JJ Redick type player. Totally. So you're not putting the ball in his hands.
But he's capable of so much more than that, though.
No, absolutely he is. Like we've seen what his brother does in an expanded opportunity, and I'm not saying he's Steph Curry, but he's a relative, and he is a guy who has shown an ability.
I think that Seth Curry would have a lot more value if like Steph just wasn't like a player. Like if he just never went to the NBA and never picked up basketball, I think Seth would have a lot more value because I think a lot of people compare him to his brother in a way.
Yeah, I think that also bodes in his favor too because you see.
Yeah, it could work both ways.
But going back to the Sixers, you see, like, unless Embiid's in the low post, yeah, he shot a career high from 3, but do you really want Embiid shooting step back threes or like 16-foot fadeaways?
Do you want Joel Embiid as your number one offensive option?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
no,
absolutely.
yeah, but do you without any shooters around, without any reliable?
I don't
shooters
want him
around?
to be my number one shot creator,
Exactly.
but I want him,
like,
I want him to be my number one option on offense.
That's more what I meant. Like, do you want him to be the guy who's taking your fucking mid-range 3-point shots at crunch time? No, you don't.
No. So in saying that, what I like, in my opinion, maybe it's just me, I think there's some guards they could get that even if they're not even as good necessarily as Ben Simmons is supposed to be, could hypothetically, would that make the team a contender?
Yeah, it's addition by subtraction. Like simply put, the guy who has the ball in his hands the most, besides Joel Embiid, is a black hole, and can't bail out Embiid. And we saw it. We saw Embiid wear down because there weren't guys who could make those shots. Don't get me wrong. Tobias Harris, like 80% of the series, had a great series, like 20+ points. But this guy is now your second option. And we saw in the past against the Raptors when Jimmy Butler's there, he couldn't be a third option. He couldn't shoot well enough to be a third option. I think Tobias Harris is overstretched in his role.
Tobias Harris is a really good third option playing in a second option role.
Thank you. And that's exactly it. And frankly, I think the Kyle Lowry trade, like, they should have done more. I'm not saying that Kyle Lowry would be the solution to all of it, but Kyle Lowry would be the guy you could put the ball in his hands. You could throw Ben Simmons down in the post as a power forward and say, okay, shot clock comes down to it. We're not going to have Ben Simmons roll to the dunker spot and have him hand the ball off because we can do other things.
So what I wanted to bring up is obviously the K-Low trade was kind of talked about quite a bit at the deadline. He ended up not getting moved, obviously. But there's some players that I have kind of thought about that would be kind of perfect in Philly, even if some of them aren't really necessarily glorified superstars. Some of them are. My first one I'm just going to go with a hot one right off the bat, and Bradley Beal.
Nope.
You don't? Why?
Ben Simmons for Bradley Beal? Is that what you're saying?
Because
I'm not saying 1-for-1.
So
no.
Listen.
I'm not saying 1-for-1.
Not even the Wizards don't.
No,
not even the Wizards wouldn't give up Bradley Beal for who would they? Listen, who would the Sixers be giving them with Simmons?
Okay, so the other thing is that you have to take in is that Simmons does have a decently high ceiling if he can figure out a shot. We don't know if that'll happen or not.
That's a big if.
But the Wizards aren't in any contention anytime soon.
But that's also a big if, and that's their franchise player. They're not just going to. That's probably their biggest bargaining chip. And I don't think they give that away for anything that Philly could offer them outside of Joel Embiid, to be honest.
I think the other thing, too, you have to think about is they're stuck with Russell Westbrook. They're stuck with a guy who is more established at doing what Ben Simmons does and ultimately does it better. And
so he's on my list, too.
Ben Simmons is one of those guys where you have to construct a whole roster around him in order to succeed. Very similar to what Giannis is in Milwaukee.
So my point is that a player like Russell Westbrook, he's older, he's kind of dwindling, but Philly's championship window is closing.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple of years, but Joel's not the most healthy guy in the league.
No, that could
so
change.
Ultimately, I say Philly's got 2, maybe 3 years of prime Joel.
I think the other thing too, like Joel's not going to age into his 30s, but like isn't going to age well into his 30s, especially with the body and the size that he has now. But we've also seen that Joel Embiid is simply so physically dominant the way he plays now that it's not like, yes, it demands a lot of his body, but at the same time, if this dude's just going to like lumber around in the post, I have a good feeling he can do that with relative ease for a good 5-6 years.
Yeah, I think without a career-altering injury, he plays at least another 5 years being productive.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think they do have a title window, but I think Ben Simmons is going to maximize that title window, and I think that might be the way they look at it. Despite
it could be, yeah. I don't think Simmonds is going to get moved. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if he was going to, I'll just give you my list right now, and you guys can bite it.
All right.
You guys can bite down on it and let me know what you think. But obviously this one's not going to have a whole lot of necessarily availability because the Bulls just went all in hopes to be contenders or at least above mediocre in Zach LaVine.
You think? I don't think that the Bulls would do that, to be honest.
I think if LaVine goes to them and says, "Look, like I know you guys have tried to build something here, but the rest of this roster just isn't good enough."
Yeah.
Then I think that's a situation. But I think the other thing too.
These are all hypotheticals. I'm not saying this is going to happen or I think this is going to happen. These are just moves that I think could help the Sixers in the long run.
Absolutely. But it comes to a point where Simmonds, we all know Simmonds didn't tank his value, but he hurt his value significantly. This guy went from being, hey, Daryl Morey calling the Rockets saying, hey, Ben Simmons is on the table. What else do I need to get it done? To now, like, okay, let's get Ben Simmons and like maybe George Hill off this roster in order to just get two guys who better fit around Joel Embiid and can be more responsible offensively. Like, he has taken that much of a hit to his value that I think if you were to look at someone like even Bradley Beal or in a dream scenario, Damian Lillard, the Sixers are throwing the farm and whatever valuable bench pieces they have out the window to make that happen.
The way I look at it, I don't think that a Ben Simmons trade is possible for two reasons. For one, Philadelphia values him. Like, Philadelphia values him here, and the rest of the league values him probably like here, like a good like halfway more than they do. So I don't think that Philadelphia is going to get an offer in which they think they're getting enough for Ben Simmons, and I don't think that there's a team out there that can give Philly or that wants Ben Simmons for what Philly is asking for it.
No, absolutely, and I totally agree with that.
With that being said, the Boston Celtics. No, really? is where I would like to see him go if he were to go anywhere.
I would like Simmons on Boston. Boston has nothing that Philadelphia could benefit.
I don't think any team has anything that Philadelphia would take. So I'm just throwing out teams I'd like to see him on.
Hear me out on this one. Malcolm Brogdon
and TJ Warren. I have that too.
Malcolm, this takes the Pacers would be terrible, but like.
I mean, but if anything, the Pacers are the team that's like, there's a few teams, and I hope we talk about it soon, that are like middling teams that really need to blow it up and bank on something and go in a new direction. And I think the Pacers is one of those teams.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the Blazers are another team. I don't think that backcourt works.
That's my other one is McCollum. So,
and that's another one I had, McCollum and Covington for Simmons and Hill.
Yeah, I don't see Simmons and I don't see Simmons and Lillard working together well.
It's not Simmons and Lillard. I don't think Dame would stay
if Simmons went there.
No, I think Dame would go somewhere else. It won't be Philly, but I don't think they'd work well either. They could, because Simmonds and Nurkic would be. If you put Simmons as a 4 with Nurkic at the 5, I think that would be kind of gross. Personally, I would like that.
Honestly, we're at the point where Simmons, like, I think, honestly, like, unless we see a miracle next year, Simmons' dream of being a point guard in this league are gone.
It's over. He's not a point guard. He can't. No. There's no way you can play the way he plays.
Facilitating, sure.
But we've seen small forwards and power forwards facilitate better than Ben Simmons. Like
that's what I'm saying. That's my point. Is that Ben Simmons would be a pretty decent facilitating slasher.
At the 5. Let's see it at the 5. Yeah.
No.
I don't care. Ben Simmons
he won't play center.
Ben Simmons is one of the few players in the league that can defend 1 through 5.
1 through 5,
And I think we've seen it in Denver that it can work, and I think that would be the best situation for Ben Simmons to facilitate. Now then again, like
put him at the 4.
Nikola Jokic.
I say put him at the 3 or the 4.
Yeah, but what 5 are you pairing him with in Portland that stretches the floor enough for him to go to the dunker spot? Because Nurkic, that's Nurkic's spot. That's why I say go to the 5, because that's where a 5 lives, and that's the only position in which a guy can survive in today's NBA as a non-shooter.
Yeah, but when he's at the 5, when Ben Simmons is at the 5 and he's going against Joker or Joel
how
or Giannis,
I see it working, what I see with that is that Ben Simmons, if you play him at the 5, you have to play a massive dude at the 4.
True, totally.
Because Ben Simmons is going to be the guy
6'11".
likely that's but
he's not big. Like he's tall,
also
he's not big.
Ben Simmons is going to defend against small forwards and point guards and shooting guards.
Exactly, because he's quick. They're
He can defend 1 through 5, but if you have Ben Simmons on your team, you don't want him guarding a center.
You're not wasting his defensive talent at the 5. You're putting him at least at the 4 or the 3.
I think we're at the point now where his offense is so bad that you have to compromise a little bit of defense.
His offense is bad, but it's not playing at center bad. At least not yet.
And because he has to be a slasher and he has to figure it out and he has to become more confident.
Mm-hmm. But he's not a center. He's not someone that would succeed being a center in the NBA.
There's no world. I don't see any world where Ben Simmons could play center.
No, me neither.
Because those guys are much stronger than Ben Simmons.
I find it hard to believe that Gordon Hayward plays power forward. Like
he plays small forward.
He plays small forward. I thought he plays some of the 4 sometimes.
No, because Miles, I think PJ Washington slides to the 4, and then Cody Zeller played the 5 for the Hornets.
Right.
But that's my take on it right now in this current iteration of Ben Simmons, is that in order, as good as he ideally defensively 1 through 4, you like that guy in just about any matchup 1 through 4. But look, his offense, and it's clear, is at a point where it is so bad that if you pair him with a guy who wants to be in the paint like Joel Embiid, we've seen it doesn't work. And if we compare him, if we're gonna say, go to Portland, Nurkic is even worse. I'd say the Celtics, besides Horford, who also isn't exactly the pristine stretch 5.
I like Horford at the 4.
Horford
I would like
tried to play the 4 in Philly, and that didn't work.
But that's why I like if the Celtics could bring in a Nurkic type guy, I would like the Simmons, Jaylen Brown, and I don't know what their fucking starting 5 would be actually, because they have fucking Jason Tatum plays the 4. Yeah, they'd have Jason Tatum at the 4, Ben at the 3, and then
I would play Tatum at the 3.
The problem is, Luke.
Yeah,
the problem is, Luke,
either or.
Is that in your explanation about why Simmons trade won't happen is, and I feel this way too, there is no way that the Philly fans let the front office live if Jaylen Brown isn't coming back.
Facts. Or fucking Jason Tatum. But that's what Philly fans expect. And the organization,
but now they don't. Now they've lost faith in Ben Simmons.
But the front office hasn't.
No, but the front office hasn't.
And the front office has made their bed, and they're not going to let him go for anything less than they value him. And no team in the NBA is giving them that.
Because they are in a position where every move they make is to try and get better. And there's hardly a situation where they get better if Ben Simmons is off the roster.
Right now, because they would have to trade him for not nobodies, but not what Ben Simmons gets paid to be, and not what people think Ben Simmons is.
Back to the so I don't love Malcolm Brogdon personally, but I think in the right situation he could be a really, really good guard.
He is a good guard. He's just inconsistent.
He's one of the best plug and play options in the league.
Yeah,
and we've seen it in Indiana in spurts where he's had to increase his role without Oladipo, without Warren, and he had his best season to date in an increased role. But we also saw Malcolm Brogdon join the 50-40-90 club when he was in Milwaukee, and his responsibility was simply to be that secondary creator.
I liked him in Milwaukee. Imagine if he was still there with Drew and fucking Middleton. That would be disgusting.
That would be ridiculous. I don't know. After the Drew trade, I think Malcolm Brogdon would have had to be sacrificed.
Yeah,
in order to bring
it wouldn't
Drew
have
back.
worked. It wouldn't have worked to pay. But it's the same thing as saying what if Jimmy Butler still played for the Sixers? It wouldn't have worked, but it would have been fucking insane.
Yeah. So I have one more Simmons trade for you, and this is I I don't know. My bias thinks that this is probably
And
like,
we know what
the
now.
best
We know
idea.
what's coming.
Simmonds for Siakam.
No way in hell Philly does that.
I don't.
First
I
of
don't
all.
think the value's
Really?
there, but
No way in hell Philly does that.
Let's talk about it this way then, because we've seen George Hill as the name attached to Simmonds' name, and George Hill is playing on a big contract similar to Al Horford. Not in terms of like it's not 20 million odd, but it's a large sum, but it's partially guaranteed. So that's an avenue for the Sixers also to say, look, we're going to give you George Hill. Ben Simmons' ceiling obviously higher than Pascal Siakam's. I don't think that's an argument.
No.
But then they say, look, maybe they want Gary Trent Jr. or something, and they want to foot the bill on his next contract. And if I'm the Raptors, I say, look, like it's time for the Raptors to realize what they are, and what they are is a team that's trying to milk out something that's not there anymore. And Simmonds fits Van Vliet's timeline, but also provides them with someone who has the physical tools and is a jump shot away from being that, not a Kawhi level guy, but being a force in the NBA, a two-way force to be reckoned with, and getting into that echelon. And I think that's the thing, if the Raptors want to be competitive, need to bank on. And if anyone's going to get it out of him, it's their system. It's their player development system.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think the Raptors win with Ben Simmons though.
I don't think so either, but that's not Beck's point.
I think for Ben Simmons, like I think that's you're taking the Raptors have always traditionally tried to play with a five that shoots. We've seen it in Ibaka and Gasol, and even they tried with Baines. That failed amazingly.
Miserably.
Yeah, but even like Chris Boucher, like we saw Chris Boucher can light it up from three. Like that provides that I don't know. That just provides the best kind of environment for Ben Simmons to
there he
succeed offensively. Hey,
no, you're damn right about that, Jake.
Yeah,
he's you're even more right.
Yeah,
you missed it. We've been shredding him all for the last like fucking probably half hour now. We've just been shredding Ben Simmons.
I totally agree. I just think for Ben Simmons to become the best player, that might be the best situation. I don't think it's the best situation for the Sixers.
Sending him to a market that's not going to do well, and maybe put him in a situation where he has to step up and score, and not
has to learn how to be like a solid player.
Yeah, like where he has to even win any games.
But that's a lot of money to pay a player if you're developing him.
But even Pascal is another one of those stories where they're paying
But Pascal's a lot younger though.
Not really.
Is he not?
Ben Simmons is younger than Pascal.
Yeah, Ben
Simmons is
like 27.
Really? I thought he got drafted like 2 years ago.
2016,
no.
But he spent
you never mind.
Pascal got drafted in it was the year the Raptors had 2 draft picks, and I think it was 2017. Pascal had spent 3 years in college at that point.
So he got drafted a year after Simmons.
Yeah. But spent more time in college, obviously.
Right.
So he's way older.
27 versus 24, I want to say.
It's a 3-year difference.
Is Simmonds 24?
Yeah, Simmonds is 24. He came into the league at 19.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But and Jake's totally right when he says that Simmonds cannot be the guy on a championship team.
I don't even think he's a second option. Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't even think he's a second option.
But look, you look at a guy like Siakam who's had the same expectations in being the guy to carry a competitive team. And I just think that would be a flipping of roles, and maybe Ben Simmons excels in that setting where he's not getting booed every single game.
See, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
My only concern is that they don't have a starting point guard.
The Sixers?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's maybe where and I don't know, but what do they do? How do they fit? And I think makes too much sense, but where do they fit Kyle Lowry in there? I think That's got to be.
You're not getting Pascal and K-Lau for Ben Simmons and Hill.
No. And I'm not saying that at all because the money wouldn't work. But where I think that's got to be their be-all and end-all is Kyle Lowry. I'd say Kyle Lowry first and foremost because of the setting, being a Philly native, being a guy that has championship experience and has exercised some postseason demons, which unfortunately now the Sixers are seeing, and just being that veteran voice and leader. Ultimately, I don't think Danny Green's like prolific enough to be that guy.
Fuck
would
Danny
be funny,
Green.
however,
He's
Pascal,
fucking washed.
Lowry, and Danny Green were on the same team again.
On the Sixers.
Oh my god!
I feel like Joel would get like Vietnam flashbacks every time he went to practice.
Yeah, really.
He'd be like, "Where's Kawhi? Where's Kawhi? I know he's here."
But
maybe that's what'll happen. Maybe Kawhi will go to Philadelphia and they'll just put the band back together. 2019 Raptors
They would win
championship
chips.
team.
They would
in
win
Philly.
chips on chip. They would win chips.
Chips on chips.
Could you imagine any point guard with Kawhi and
Kawhi
Embiid?
Leonard is like a little bit worse than Ben Simmons at defense, like a little bit.
No, he's not. I don't think
Well,
he is.
only because I don't think Kawhi Leonard can guard the big positions as well as Ben Simmons can. That's the only way I give Ben Simmons like a little bit of like an edge.
Yeah, I think Ben Simmons is a little more
But
versatile defensively.
like literally, like I was gonna say, Kawhi Leonard is literally what the Sixers wanted Simmons to be.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
And I'd say if anything, despite wingspan, Ben Simmons probably has the more favorable physical tools in terms of his height and strength than Kawhi to be a scorer.
Totally,
we saw
100%, and that's why I said like purely physically wise, because Simmons is more built to guard the bigger positions than Kawhi is.
So to respond to Jake here, he says Ben's defense is overrated. I don't think his defense is necessarily overrated. I think it just doesn't outweigh the lack of offense.
It's overvalued when you take in the rest of his game. His defense isn't overrated at all. He is a lights out defender. Like you put him on almost any player in the NBA, and he's got a shot of shutting them down. And you can't say that about many guys. But his offense is so terrible that it's almost starting to overshadow how good he is on defense.
Yep. No, I think Luke's hit the nail on the head there.
Nothing else new, eh?
No, that's been the story of Ben Simmons for about 5 years, and it will continue to be the story until
I hope it doesn't. Like Ben Simmons has the potential to be awesome, but he needed to start trying to be awesome like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Thibault will be just as good of a defender in a year or two.
I love Thibault. I think Thibault was one of their best draft picks, but no. I'm sorry, no.
That's too much of a stretch.
That's a little bit of a stretch. That's a little bit of a stretch.
To what extent does Thibault shoot? Because I know he shoots the ball
more than Simmons, but like that's not saying much.
How well?
Yeah, that's not saying much at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like fucking.
I think I shoot better than fucking.
Yeah,
I think everyone
honestly,
in this group shoots better than
anyone who's ever made a three. Pretty much.
I think Dion Waiters on the Lakers last year shot better than fucking Ben Simmons.
Yeah. J.R. Smith in like 2 bubble games made more 3-pointers than Ben Simmons has had in his career.
You guys are going to hate me, but Jeremy Lin in his 30 seconds in Toronto made better shots than Ben Simmons did.
Oh, wow.
Good numbers, but you can't. Yeah. My point is, you can't say Thibault's ever going to be as good of a defensive player as Ben Simmons.
I love Thibault. He's like probably my favorite player on the Sixers, but defensively, he's nowhere near what Simmons is. You're a Philly fan and you're mad that they lost, and I would be too, and you're blame Ben Simmons as I would too. But his terrible offense is overshadowing his. He really has a lot. He's one of the most talented defenders I've ever seen. When he wants to, though. Jake made a really good point. He said he only plays good defense when he wants to, and I think that's really true. Yeah. I think Ben Simmons is like a moody player. Like he either comes in wanting to play, or he comes in like, I don't really care. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think we saw it, especially in the fourth quarter, like right in crunch time. Like we saw Kevin Huerter probably make like 3/4 of their shots in crunch time.
Literally,
and we saw Trae Young almost turn the ball over 2 times.
And where was Ben Simmons? Like
Trae Young.
And Trae Young was still just fucking shooting over him.
No, he wasn't.
But Trae
played
Young,
horribly.
Like, almost.
Oh, in what game? Sorry,
Game 7.
Game 7.
He almost turned the ball over like twice.
No, true.
Yeah. And I think Jake's totally right. If Ben Simmons would do that for 48 minutes, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about how the Sixers lost this series because of this guy.
I agree.
Or if he may dunk over Trae Young the odd time when it's wide open.
When it's literally he's got a 2-step jump on him and he's not even facing him.
When 5'11" Trae Young, let's not lie, his height's probably over.
He's not over 6 foot, man. And Ben Simmons is like probably almost a foot taller than him, and he didn't even try.
And Trae Young, I haven't seen Trae Young dunk in my life. And Trae Young's on the other side of the restricted area, which is like 3 feet by 3 feet.
If Trae Young
Simmons is standing on the other side.
If Trae Young dunks, it's like a finger grazer.
Yeah, literally.
It's like he doesn't even get enough to like hold on. He just like grazes it with the tip.
Does he have an NBA dunk?
Probably.
No.
Trey? He
so.
Probably does.
No, I don't think so.
No, he definitely has at least one. He definitely got one open fast break and went up for a dunk at least once.
If anything, he caught like Clint Capella's shoulder and got a boost as he went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only ever see Trey throwing layups.
He's a great finisher, but
almost threw my beer at the TV. I would have thrown my TV out the window. Like I would have thought my TV was showing.
If I was a Sixers fan, I would probably be like on my floor in a pool of beer right now if I was a Sixers fan.
Yeah.
The Hawks weren't even supposed to make it out of the first round. And like a lot of people were shocked when they beat the Sixers because Trey did turn up and the Sixers weren't, or sorry, the Knicks. Yeah. The Knicks, because that was a lopsided series from the first game, and Trae Young was lighting it up or whatever. But no one gave them a chance against Philly. Nobody.
No.
And it was Ben Simmons had a lot to do with it, in my opinion.
Do you think that, and I think we talked about it when we saw the game, but do you think, as bad as we saw Philadelphia be, do you think both of those teams were just playing for their funeral? Like playing to extend their lives, but really?
I think Atlanta was.
I think
maybe if the Sixers pulled that out, they may have maybe had a wake-up call a little bit and changed their game plan a little bit against the Bucks. Because the truth is, Ben Simmons can guard Giannis.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, like what better wake-up call is Ben Simmons getting than all of the hate that he's getting now, all the trade rumors? God damn it, his coach came out and said, I don't think this guy can lead a championship team as a point guard. Like what more? He was never going to get.
Or bad.
Yeah, like Philly hasn't made it out of the second round in the past 4 years and has made it there every single time. And that is nothing compared to some other teams, but that is its own right. They're starting demons.
They're starting to become a lot like Portland, like really good team in the regular season, and then you get past the first round, and then second round, someone always just ends up beating them. But at least
2010's Raptors.
But at least Portland lost to like good teams. At least Portland lost to like teams that like it could have gone either way. Like the Sixers weren't even supposed to go past 5 games against the Hawks. Like
no. Like there was no better wake up call than this for that team and for Ben Simmons. And that's why I think even if they had passed, if they had gotten past the second round, everyone would be thinking, oh my gosh, the Sixers made it past the second round with this iteration of this team, with Ben Simmons being who he is and Joel Embiid being who he is. I think it is actually Glenn.
Is it actually Glenn?
No, it's a dog. Doc's a nickname.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
4 Game 7s in a row he's lost. But yeah, like with the Clippers, absolutely, that's a whole different thing.
The Clippers went to 3 Game 7s in a row with him?
No, not 3 Game 7s in a row, but
but 4 in his career, right?
They lost to the Nuggets in a Game 7. They lost to the Spurs in a Game 7. Like the Clippers have been there before with Doc Rivers, and ultimately Doc Rivers didn't get it done, hasn't gotten it done since 2008. But this is probably, in my opinion, the last Game 7 that Doc Rivers should be blamed for, because he made it work for 72 games with that team and got them to the number 1 seed. And ultimately, what failed him was the expectation that he had figured out Ben Simmons, but figured out how to let Ben Simmons exist in that team. And Ben Simmons ultimately let that down.
And I really like the point that you made. I don't know if we were on or not, but when you said that he doesn't let Seth Curry create his own offense, he's just a catch and shoot guy, like second, third option. When he's out there, he's just standing on the line waiting for shots, and that's super easy to defend, right? So and Seth Curry, I think he has a lot of talent, and if they would have let him create a bit more of his shots, or at least given him more shots to take, I think that they would have. I think if they put the ball in his hands like a little bit more and taken some of Simmonds' possessions away when we started to see that Simmonds wasn't going to be playing offense the way we thought he was going to, I think that the series would have been a different story.
I think that's the logical avenue they have to turn to. Like if they're just going to say like, okay, we're going to try like George Hill wasn't good enough, we're going to look to add someone there. If they say like, if they're just going to say, look, we got to make these guys around these guys better, which is sensible considering how badly they got beat, like how badly their bench got beaten.
Yeah.
It's logical enough to think that that's a possibility, but at the same time, like Philly pulled a Philly.
What's up, gents? Philly pulled a Philly.
Yes,
What's going on, Eric J. Moore?
You know what? I'm gonna make a compilation video of Patrick Kane's Game 7 winning goal, Carson Wentz tearing his ACL, and this last Game 7, Kawhi hitting the shot. And then Joel Embiid's face after they lost the game, and I'm going to send it to the OCS group chat. Just for all the Leafs slander that we've been hearing.
Yeah, looks like the Simmonds is finally thinking about shooting right-handed. That was another thing like too.
2 years too late.
There are legitimate claims that he was actually like prodded into shooting left-handed by his dad, despite doing a lot of things right-handed. Simmonds typically, who friggin' knows? And it's clear though. It's clear that like he does dribble a lot with his right hand. He is very comfortable dribbling with his right hand. And you also see in his shooting, like his left hand, it's so weird. His right hand is sturdy and his left hand's kind of like this almost. Like
it's almost like a weird like reverse thing of what Lonzo does, because Lonzo like brings it across his face and then shoots it, and fucking Simmonds goes like that and then goes like that almost and shoots it. It's fucking weird.
Yeah,
like he like puts his hand on the ball and then turns it like sideways, and like it's fucking it's weird.
It's like Joakim. It's like
he has an awful throw.
Yeah, it totally looks like Joakim Noah's, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Brent, are you working on something there, bud?
No. Like you're writing stuff down.
I'm not writing. I'm just reading.
I honestly don't think Bridgie has blinked this entire episode. Every time I look at Clem, I just see Bridgie
say something. Actually,
do you not see me blinking?
It doesn't look like it.
now, yes, but the entire episode, every time I look up,
because your eyes are so fucking big. You look like a bobblehead.
You do have big. Not even. You just have your eyes are always open. Like you never blink.
Sure.
It's clear on free throws. Hard to gain muscle memory with your offhand.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you're using one hand for everything you do, and then the other hand for something else, it's not going to feel natural, no matter what.
Yeah. Like even we've seen guys like there are some decently ambidextrous players in the league. Like a good
Kyrie
one that comes to mind is actually, Kyrie, absolutely. But another good example that I was thinking of was Mike Conley.
Yeah, he can go both ways.
Yeah, Mike Conley can go both ways, but we see it so friggin' rare. And we've seen it with like Tristan Thompson, where he thought he was left-handed, and ultimately what felt more comfortable was his right hand. Like we've seen it with guys that are like, it's a matter of comfort. And does that look comfortable? Does this look comfortable at all? Like, hell no.
Can you imagine if we see a guy in the NBA that can like comfortably, consistently hit shots with both hands? That's like that would be like almost unguardable.
Like if we see a guy that can like at any time hit jump shots with both hands,
literally just consistently hit shots with either hand.
Well, it's simply like it's unguardable. Like it's like baseball and switch hitting. Like
literally, exactly.
Favorable matchup.
Imagine a switch pitcher.
There are switch pitchers.
Yeah, there are some.
There are switch pitchers.
Yeah.
How do you what do you do?
Well, you don't, right? They automatically have an advantage. And for this guy, like if there were ever to be a player that could do that, your shot creation becomes so simple. Because simply, they're going to force me right? Cool, I'm going to sidestep, pull up right-handed.
Literally, because I can shoot with both
I think
hands,
it's kind of interesting because I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't seen someone like that yet.
Well, we've seen lots of players hit shots with their offhands, but we've never seen a player that could shoot consistently with both hands.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Larry Bird is probably the closest we've seen to that.
Yeah.
Hammer magic.
Larry was more like a fuck you game. Like we didn't see it from Larry because he never had to, and he was so good.
Larry played an entire game left-handed because he was bored.
Yeah, against the Blazers.
Larry literally just looks like a hillbilly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know that picture of Steve Nash and Dirk when they're just like fucked up and you're like, you'd walk into Dallas and get 30-pieced by these two motherfuckers? That's how I feel about Larry Bird. Because like there's that picture of him leaning out of the Jeep with that pedophile smile on, and you're like, you'd pull up to Boston and get 30-pieced by that motherfucker because he's literally the best player on the court and it's not even close.
Literally rookie year Larry, like
unreal.
Like,
he's so underrated. Larry Bird he does not get the respect he deserves.
Pre-game,
I mean, he's a top 10 player. I don't think anyone would not say that.
No, but you'd be surprised how many people don't consider him a top 10 player. Like you'd be surprised.
I've seen him on every list I've ever seen.
No, but if you just talk to like a lot of people, forget about Larry Bird.
Yeah, because Larry Bird was so like nonchalant, but then you hear these stories about like. Literally, people call him Larry Legend because this guy would call his shots before MJ was calling his shots.
Literally,
Larry was coming into the gym and be like, "Oh man, I feel like a 40-piece tonight," and then like he would drop 40
and then he'd go fucking do it. Think about that. Like we haven't like that's like Babe Ruth pointing into the fucking stands and smacking it to win the World Series. Like Larry was a fucking badass, man. I actually fucking love Larry Bird. He's one of Larry Bird highlights are actually really fun to watch because it was literally back in the 80s, and they just had him creating all the offense and a bunch of tall motherfuckers around him. It was fucking awesome.
No, you're totally right. So speaking on the term of badass, I want to switch over to like bum ass, and I want to talk about Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz. Can we please? Because we're going from Larry Legend to Rudy, and this is very similar to what Jake said about Ben Simmons. Rudy Gobert refuses to guard on the perimeter. Yeah, this guy is an all-world defensive anchor, and simply is willing to listen. I got Game 7 stats here for you. The Clippers shot 13 corner threes, made 13 corner threes. Right? Yeah. They were running. Batum shot 60% in that game from 3. Terrence Mann made 5 corner threes. And why? Because it's very simple. They're driving, they're kicking, they're rotating, and who's running to the corner? The guy that's standing in the paint. Obviously. And that's Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert doesn't do that because, hey, he's this all-world 3-time defensive player of the year that, feels as though he doesn't have to. And ultimately, most of the time he doesn't. We've seen it in the regular season. We've seen it with this defensive player of the year.
But the Clippers, I think the Clippers move the ball better than almost any team in the NBA. The Clippers are always moving the ball. They the drill where every player has to touch the ball before you shoot. I feel like that's what I'm watching when I watch the Clippers play.
But yeah, certainly without Kawhi, that's the case. But look, at the end of the day, that is 5 out, 5 small. We've seen it since, the Warriors made it famous.
I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I just caught on now. I know exactly what you're doing.
We're reading, bro.
Yeah, you're reading.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The Warriors made it famous, and it's clear now that traditional 5s, no matter how good they can be, are getting run off the court. Rudy Gobert subtracting Game 5, because in Game 5 he allowed only 15% of 3-point attempts that his guy was shooting to go in. Subtract that game, and this dude allowed over 40% of 3-pointers that he was supposed to be guarding go in. That's well above league average.
Oh, yeah.
And there is simply no way that the Clippers didn't go into halftime down 25 and say, hey, look, we're down 25. We're not getting anything inside against this guy. Let's just make our shots because we have one of the better stretch 5s in the league in Batum. Let's pull them out.
Yeah.
And they
just went small ball and they didn't know what to do against it.
Exactly. And Rudy Gobert, and we see Embiid absolutely dominate smaller teams that try to do this to him, right? But Rudy Gobert is by far no means is he a Ben Simmons on offense because he doesn't have that same type of responsibility. He's a rim roller because he's a traditional 5.
He's got a solid team around him that allows him to play his role the way he needs to play his role. It's just the Clippers literally found a way to eliminate him entirely.
Yeah,
and it worked to perfection.
Because if he's not on the roll, they're still not going to throw him the ball against a smaller matchup.
Yeah, you got to also take in that they did that without Kawhi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Literally.
Totally.
Like Kawhi's one of those guys that hits his threes. He's not by any means a shot creator, but he's the Clippers' best player.
Is he supposed to be back for game 2?
No, he's ruled out.
He's already been ruled out.
Yeah.
Dude, if he doesn't come back, I think the Suns win it. Because if he doesn't come back, Devin Booker's the best player in that series.
Yeah, and by the
right now, like in these playoffs.
By the sounds of things, like Chris Paul is on a more definite timeline than Kawhi. There's a lot more
because it's COVID, right? So there's because there's
there is
days.
the timeline.
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly
what it is.
Yeah,
like, Kawhi could come back first. Kawhi could come back game 3 and be fine.
I remember when he got injured, they said he was out indefinitely, which just means until further notice. So he could be fine before game 3, and they'll announce it like the day of that he's playing. Like you never know. Indefinitely just means until further notice. It pretty much just means until we say he's not.
I think unless he does have like ACL damage, I think we'll see whether he comes back or not because we know Harden played through that grade 2 hamstring strain. We're going to see how serious this injury is very shortly.
Definitely.
Yeah,
if it gets past game 3 and he hasn't played, I don't think he's playing the whole series.
No, especially honestly, like if the Suns go up 2-0 in their own building and they're going back, the Clippers are less than confident that this Suns team doesn't take 1 or possibly even 2 in their building because the Suns are.
I have absolutely no doubt in the Clippers coming back in a series after the last 2 series, though.
But without Kawhi.
Without Kawhi, it's going to be
without Kawhi, yeah, for sure. Obviously, down to
one game, even if it is a game 7, is a lot different than a full series because any team can win one game on any given night.
Yeah, but they did win. The series was tied when Kawhi went out.
Yeah, they won.
Yeah, he went out for game
6.
Yeah, he went out when it was 2-2, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean that's 2 out of 3. Like that's still it's not a full 7-game series. You know what I mean? Like he's still
I know, but it was still impressive to see the Clippers take on the number 1.
Totally. But I don't think that they can do that against. I don't think they can do that.
I'm not saying I don't think they can either, and that's why I said last episode that I think if the Clippers can get Kawhi back, they'll win the chip. That was what I said.
The chip, the Western Conference Final, probably the chip. We'd have to see. Because I don't think that anybody has the Hawks coming out of the East.
I think the Clippers, especially if Kawhi comes back, can beat the Bucks.
They could, but I don't think it's definite.
No, I'm not saying it's definite. That's my prediction. But with the Clippers, it's
like I don't think you look at the Clippers and the Bucks and go, "Oh, the Clippers easily win that."
Yeah, because the Clippers, I mean, Kawhi's going to shut down Giannis.
Yeah, but the Bucks are the Bucks have proven that they're dangerous, especially on the bench. They've proven it.
Yeah, they've proven it, but I mean, if the Nets are fully healthy, I don't think the Bucks win that series.
No. I think the other thing is too though is that the Bucks entered a series with less expectations. However, internally they also had championship expectations. The Bucks thrived under their own self-pressure. Finally. They've had championship expectations for a long time.
Yeah.
They finally had the team, circumstances went their way, but, even the Raptors had to have things go their way.
Well, they really did. They absolutely.
The Raptors had to
a lot of playoffs come down to luck.
Exactly.
I haven't seen the championship come down to luck the way that it has for the Raptors, like the way that it did for the Raptors, like ever.
No. But even like Warriors teams, like even Warriors titles, like Kevin Love for the Warriors' first chip, Kevin Love wasn't there. The Cavs had Draymond Green suspended in Game 5 of the 2016 championship. Like staying healthy is a skill. There is luck involved to it because obviously there are freak plays. But the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks have been able to stay healthy is partly skill.
I agree. because they can play in a way where they don't have to rely on one or two guys to create all the offense and to play all the defense. They have a really deep team, and a lot of guys can do a lot of things, and that's why I think Milwaukee is really dangerous.
Yeah,
and I think that the fact that they beat the Brooklyn Nets, injuries or no injuries, that shows a lot, because they had Kyrie and KD for what? How many? Like at least 3 games, right? 3 or 4. When did Kyrie go out? I don't remember.
4 games. Because
Kyrie went out in game 5, right? Or he went out in game 5?
No,
game 4?
He went out in game 4 because the Nets won game 5 on Kevin Durant's performance.
Right.
And then the Bucks won game 6.
So they had KD and Kyrie for the first 5 games, which is tough to defend. Like, and Harden was out, and like there was injuries. Like, there would have been different if there wasn't injuries, obviously, but they still did beat a good team in the Brooklyn Nets, a team that no one thought they were going to beat, except for Beck and I.
For the first time in Milwaukee's era of dominance with Giannis, they overcame adversity. They overcame a series in which they were not expected to win, and they were not labeled chokers. But they had been labeled chokers. They exercised demons, and I think they have a level of confidence that's going to make them dangerous.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
The championship now. I mean, they have to beat Atlanta, but
yeah.
They haven't had the easiest road, but like they have the easier matchup of the two. Yes, they do.
Yeah. I think if anything, Atlanta, I think Brooklyn was probably the toughest challenge they have. Atlanta's going to be tough in their own right, but I think Milwaukee internally has figured it out, and Atlanta's going to be that stepping stone for them.
I don't think that Atlanta takes more than 2 games from Milwaukee.
No. I think we're seeing a complete Milwaukee team where even if they do go up 2-0, they're going to just keep putting the foot down on the snake's neck.
See, I think that Atlanta will win probably game 3 and game 5.
I think Atlanta's going to win game 3 and game 4, and then the Bucks are going to win 1 and 2 and 4 and 5, or 3, 5 and 6 rather.
I think Atlanta will win one of their home games.
I think the only time Atlanta's going to win is at home.
Bucks in 5. Thank you.
I like that too. Honestly, I don't think that the Hawks take more than 2 games from the Bucks.
I
don't think so either. But I think if they do take one, they'll definitely take one of their home ones. I think.
Yeah, definitely. At least one at home. I think both. To be honest,
if they take both at home.
If they're gonna win any game, they're not gonna win a game in Milwaukee. That's basically what I'm trying to say. No. I don't think they win a game in Milwaukee.
No, that's why I don't think it gets past game 5, is because the Bucks are more confident than ever. Their fans are more confident than ever, and ultimately, the Bucks have played in some pretty tough situations. They had to play a Miami team that had their number. They played a much better Brooklyn team. Ultimately, the iteration that they played wasn't better, but everyone expected that Brooklyn team to beat them.
I think that it comes down to 2. I think it'll go 2 ways. I think that either Milwaukee wins their 2 for game 1 and game 2, Atlanta wins 3 and 4, and then Milwaukee wins 5 and 6, or Milwaukee wins 1, Atlanta wins 2, and then Milwaukee wins the rest. Because I think if Atlanta takes 1 in Milwaukee, they won't win another. They won't win another game. Period.
So, hear me out here. I think the only issue the Bucks might have, I don't think they will, but they could have, is that they may be on a high horse after beating the Nets, and Atlanta could stroll into Milwaukee and maybe steal game 1 like they did against the Sixers.
Yeah, definitely. They could come in and steal game 1 or 2, but then after that, it's all Milwaukee.
Yeah. I think there's going to be one game where Milwaukee, probably rides a high horse, but I also think that there's too much momentum there. It's not like they're rusty or anything. It's not like they haven't played in a while. They're in a groove. I think playing at home in front of that crowd will probably get them through 1 and 2, but I think there will be a slip up there. And I think you're right, and I think it is, but I think it's going to come in Atlanta. And then I think it just snaps back into reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just saying I wouldn't be overly surprised to see Atlanta maybe take game 1 or 2.
No, I agree with you there, Clem. But honestly, something that I've just thought that I've actually really enjoyed this playoffs is this is the first playoffs that I've watched that I can say definitely the East has been a lot more entertaining to watch than the West has been.
Yeah, I would agree with you. For
a long time, the East was boring and the West was the the games that everyone watched. But this season, it's kind of been opposite.
Well,
Like the West has been kind of like boring and lopsided, and the East has been like series have been close, and it's a lot of game sevens and a lot of fourth quarter comebacks and stuff.
I think the West has always been that kind of slaughterhouse conference where like teams 1 through 8 have certainly been capable of causing problems for other teams.
Totally.
Whereas in the East, we had teams like the first round, we had teams 1 through 4 probably advance like 3 of the last 4 years or 4 of the last 5 or something.
Even the last like
clear,
even the last like 8 or 9 years, you could look at the East and go like the one of these 2 or 3 teams is probably going to win, and most times they do.
Yeah. Like there's been a clear division of tiers
exactly.
in the East.
Like a lot of the years everyone knew it was going to come down to Cleveland and the Raptors, and every year Cleveland was going to beat them 4-2 or 4-1, and then like for a lot of the time that was it. But it's actually really nice to see the East.
It was a lot of the same.
Exactly, and honestly, that era of the NBA was a lot of the same. It was Cleveland, then it was Cleveland, then it was Golden State for a lot of years there, but. I don't know. It's just nice to see the East teams. Like I've loved watching Atlanta. I know I've said it before, but I've gained a lot of respect for Atlanta as they've gone on. I loved watching all the game sevens. They've been fucking awesome. I think the East has been sick.
Yeah, I mean, I think the West has had its adventures too this offseason, obviously with the
upsets.
Clippers, the Clippers coming back 0-2 twice in a series. That's pretty fucking impressive. The Suns upsetting the Lakers. I mean, I'm sorry, Luke. I enjoyed watching that.
No, it was interesting. It was definitely like upsets are fun to watch, right? Like unless you're the team that's getting upset, right?
Yeah, and it's nothing against the Lakers, but I was happy to see it.
I was happy to see Atlanta win purely because they were the lower seed and they were the upset, and everyone loves an upset, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot more fun watching fan bases after an upset too.
Exactly. Especially if they're Philadelphia.
Yeah, especially for the franchise that throws popcorn.
Dude, I have not seen this many jersey burning videos since the Leafs, since Vancouver or the Leafs.
Yeah.
And you can pick a year for the Leafs, man, honestly.
Literally the Leafs jersey sales are only probably number 1 in the league for the fact that everyone has to buy a new one every year.
Pretty much. Because everyone burns them like, oh, I'm fucking done. And then fucking October comes around and they're like, fuck.
Here we go.
Guess I'm getting back on the horse. It's like, actually, I'm not going to say that.
Watch the Sixers spend like more money than just about any team like this offseason just because they have so many fans burning jerseys and they just get like this massive influx of jersey sales.
I bet they will.
They 100% will.
Because you know what? The only teams that burn jerseys are the ones that are the most loyal fans, which is the most ironic part about it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong there.
Because they get the most heartbroken when their team loses.
Exactly, but then they just buy jerseys again.
Exactly.
Which is pretty fucking dumb in my opinion.
I think
that's why I've never burned mine, because I've always had like a really I've been really tempted every year, but then I'm like, I'm gonna be in the same spot next year cheering for the Leafs, so like there's no fucking point.
Yeah. I think too, like the other thing about loyal fan bases is a lot of it, not to say like the Leafs or the Sixers weren't contenders, but I think a lot of it is like can be very, very overblown. Like definitely from my perspective, I think this is the Leafs' best opportunity to win a cup this year. But I think there were a few teams out there that were probably better than these guys. And I think Philly was kind of in the same boat. Like the Brooklyn Nets team is definitely better than them. I thought Milwaukee would give them a good test, if not beat them. And I certainly think there are teams out west that would give the Sixers trouble. And that's why I think like there sometimes can be a false narrative, especially from loyal fan bases around some of these teams, where expectations do become a little bit overhyped, and then the disappointment just becomes that much more magnified because of those failed expectations.
That's why I kind of, at this point, when it comes to the Leafs especially, I know it's not really a basketball conversation, I'll hype them up, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's just another year of Leafs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised when they lose anymore.
No, I'm sad and I'm heartbroken and I'm pissed off, but at the end of the day, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
There's always that feeling, no matter how good the team is, that it's going to happen, and then every year it fucking happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so in saying that, we're getting a little bit late into this one, but I really don't have anything else. I do want to talk about the worst contracts in the league a little bit, kind of to close out the show. I think that's all we got left. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Beck, but
no, I think if you want to get into it, like now is a good time to get into it with a lot of teams moving into their off season. We've already seen a swap of bad contracts, and I think like especially for contenders, that is kind of the no kidding. There is that onus to shake some of these bad contracts because some of these bad contracts do exist in places where they can be burdens on a team.
Detrimental.
So when we say that, I think we're going to look at most detrimental contracts to a team because there are arguably some good players on here on these lists that we have that simply just
not arguably. There's good players on this list.
No, like there are, yes, but there are good players that are detrimental to their team despite their impact on the court because of what the money they make off the court, simply put.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I have Beck's list in front of me. And I pretty much agree with his list if we're talking about the most detrimental contracts. I'm not going to try and vary it too much. Personally, I think John Wall, who you have number one back.
Yeah.
I don't think I think we have to see what he does.
We saw what he does. He played a full season.
He's not getting any
I don't
younger,
think he was
man.
100% this season.
But he's not getting any younger, man. He's been injured for what, 2 years now? 3 years?
When we say detrimental, it's because no one is trading for John Wall. That is stuck. You are not getting out of that unless you want to buy that out and bite that bullet for another 7 years.
Unless he somehow has some amazing fucking season next year and they can deal him, but I don't see that happening.
No, not in that situation. Unfortunately, like
his contracts were just too big.
Yeah, and that's kind of why like it's more detrimental more than anything, because the onus is that he is just running out his days on this contract, and after that he'll be chasing mid levels. Like that is a contract you can't.
And he knows that. And he knows that.
Yeah, and I think he does. But I'd like to see him, come out with something to prove. Like I certainly think he did this year, and I certainly think with like a torn Achilles, it does take time. But honestly, like the narrative there is just, that is you're handcuffed. You can't move that unless it's for someone else that's on an equally bad contract.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying I'm not sure it's the end of the line for John Wall yet.
No, but in terms of like he's not getting dealt on this contract, he's stuck there, right? Like that's just a bad contract for a team to have right now.
I agree. It's just at this point I don't think Houston really has any intention of being a contender or going out and trying to be a contender until that contract's up. I don't know when does it run through?
So he's got another 2 years on it for a total of $91.7 million.
Yeah, it's a brutal contract, but for the Houston Rockets, I don't think it's the most detrimental because they can't really do anything either. Anyways, like they're not in a position to succeed.
But
so, like for me, this is the only one that I might lower like quite substantially on my list, just because I don't think it makes a detrimental change to the team because there's no chance they're contending anytime soon, anyways.
I think the only thing is like when we say detrimental, you put that guy in any other situation, and that absolutely just handicaps the team. Like
no, I agree, but I'm just saying in the current situation, it doesn't work.
Yeah, but on a non team by team basis, that would easily far and away for that player be the most detrimental contract.
Yeah, so when I'm thinking of most detrimental, I'm thinking most detrimental to their team right now.
To their team, but yeah, like if you. Let's say, like, we just saw what happened with Kemba and Horford, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But if you put John Wall on the Celtics, like, if that was John Wall filling Kemba's role on the Celtics, making the money that John Wall does, like, the Celtics are fucked, plain and simple.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree. My whole point was I would put him lower on the list just because he's not that detrimental to the Houston Rockets.
No, you're right. I tried to look at it more from a neutral perspective, but yeah, no, in that situation, it's not as bad. You're totally right on that one.
At number 2, you have Al Horford.
Yep, Al Horford. Basically, his numbers look like he's got 2 years left at $53.5 million. The only thing about Al Horford, and the reason I put him at number 2, despite partial guarantees, we'll talk about in a minute, is his age. This guy is like a 7-foot center at age 35, right? You're making 27 odd million this year, probably even more than that. And look, that guy was just there to fit the floor for the Thunder, and now at least he has a role. But that's a guy who was traded for another bad contract in Kemba Walker. He's not, that's another guy who's past the value of his contract now.
Yeah.
But I think Philly really put a dent in his value.
Yeah.
And I think Boston would have given him something similar, but that's an age thing. And that's just what it is. But it looks better, at least for the Celtics, and the fact that only in his last year of his contract, which will be 2022-23, he's only guaranteed $14.5 million of that contract of that year. And then basically it's another $12.5 million or so, roughly around that, if they make the finals and win the finals ultimately. So it does give them a little bit of flexibility next year when Marcus Smart does become a free agent. But then again, that's a contract that's just, you're not getting $27.5 million worth out of that guy.
No, absolutely not. There's a lot better players in the league for that price. And I agree that this one is definitely detrimental. And it was definitely detrimental to the Thunder considering he wasn't even playing.
Well, they sat the guy. The only benefit was that he was detrimental because he was taking up development time for them. But the only benefit was he's eating up cap space because the Thunder just have it in leaps and bounds, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the Thunder's only gonna have young talent in the next 5 years. Like they're only gonna have young talent unless they trade some of it away. But as it stands right now, as it stands right now, in the next 5 years, the fucking Oklahoma is going to be full of young talent.
Yeah. The sixth graders are rolling in soon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Al Horford is one of those old guys, but another one that is very, very similar to that is what I have at number 3 in Kevin Love. Good player in his own right, but ultimately injuries have just kind of caught the best of him, but he's also gotten the best of him, but he's also now just in a situation where it's empty production, right? And he has struggled with his health. But you're not moving Kevin Love for $30 million. He's past the point where he can be a solid third option on a championship team, and at $30 million, that just doesn't happen anymore with the way contracts are in the NBA.
Yeah, that's true.
No, number 4, I have Brent. I don't know
before we move into number 4. I just want to make a point that like some of these guys have earned these contracts.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though they're not necessarily as serviceable as they used to be, like Kevin Love won chips for that team.
Yeah,
and that there is something to be said for that in guys getting paid for what they've done for the team in the past. When a team when a team's no longer a contender, they can kind of just throw money at these guys to thank them. Per se.
The reality of it is that's the going rate for stars in the NBA. The Clippers are going to be paying Paul George $45 million when he's 38 years old. That's the going rate for stars at this point because that's what it takes to sign them. Because other teams are going to do the exact same thing.
Because players are smart now. Like players know that they're worth that much money, and they know that they can get it no matter where they go.
And it's long-term security, right? And the other thing is too is like when Russ signed his extension, he was 3 years ago. He's 29 years old, coming off like MVP caliber seasons with the Thunder, averaging triple doubles. That guy more than deserved his contract, right?
Yeah.
Like for the impact he had on that team, absolutely. But the reason some of these contracts, the reason some of them are so detrimental now is because ultimately they pay the price for these stars and they just age bad because that's just what happens, right? And we'll see it down the line. We'll see more and more guys down the line with these kind of contracts.
That's why you see it a lot in basketball, where once their old guys age, they're out of there's no chance of contention.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like your contract's up and you're rank chasing, right? So saying that, number 4 is Russell Westbrook. He's got on the books for another 2 years at $91.3 million. Originally signed a 5-year, $205 million extension.
And he's another one of those guys that earned that contract.
Yeah,
like
no,
he earned that
100%.
contract. He earned that contract, and he's gotten older, and his game's decreased. Well, like he put up fucking insane numbers this year, but his game it's decreased definitely. But he earned that contract, but he'll be there until the end of his contract, and then he'll chase minimums if he doesn't retire.
One really good thing with him though is he adapted to.
Yeah, he did
too, right?
Totally. I honestly just think that a lot of the guys on this list, except for a few, are guys like Westbrook that were good, earned their contracts, and then just got old or have gotten older and decreased a little bit, and then are going to be chasing minimums when their contract's done.
So the thing about Russell Westbrook is that Russell Westbrook isn't a bad player.
Not at all.
No, by no means. It's more of like a future lens in the contract that look, the way Russ plays the game and the way his body has aged health-wise, it's inevitable that there's going to be a physical drop-off where he can't do that stuff. And that's why this contract may look bad. Like it looks bad now because in 2 years, chances are this contract will look terrible.
Yeah,
and that's just the reality
of it. Bad at the time, but I think everyone understands why he has it. Like he earned that money.
Yeah, no one's questioning why he got that money, but it's the same thing as a lot of people were saying when Chris Paul got his deal, got traded to the Thunder because he made a crap ton of money. The guy still deserves like his money and is probably going to go sign another seven-figure contract or like 9-figure contract after his deal, after he opts out this year. But the fact is that while they look good in the present, a lot of these deals just end up being bad in the future because these players, like Luke said, are smart and know how to set themselves up.
Yeah, no,
and honestly, they have the right to set themselves up because being a professional athlete is a career where you could literally get injured and not have a career to come back to. Like you need, like they want to grab as much job security as they possibly can while they can, because even if they don't get injured, they're going to get old and they're eventually not going to be able to play the way that they do when they're making these millions of dollars.
Their careers are shorter than 95% of professions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So like you want to grab all that money and job security that you can while you can, because sooner or later you're not going to be able to.
And it's not a slight to any of these players. Like pretty much all of these players deserved what they got. It's just, they look bad now because,
I think everyone on this list pretty much deserves it.
Yeah, I'd say, well, we'll get to it later, but I think there are a couple guys that don't deserve it. Number 5, I have Kemba. Obviously, we talked about the Kemba Horford trade. I know like the money is more in Kemba's deal, but there's also a good chance that at Kemba's age, there is a chance that it's just health and he's got good basketball left in him. Yeah, do I think his game's going to age well? Probably not. He's undersized, and he relies on a lot of athleticism and lateral movement, which takes a toll on his knees. But at the same time, he's 31 years old. Like, he's a lot younger than some of the guys on this list. He's still definitely got good basketball in him, and we saw with Chris Paul that OKC has developed a good situation for these guys to rehab their value.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh, yeah. No question.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see him like off this list in, a few months, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him flip to a contender for the last year of his deal. You know what I mean?
You never know.
I think so. Number 6, I have Gordon Hayward, and this is one I'm a little less favorable on.
And I think that's purely because of injuries, though. Because when Gordon Hayward plays, he's really good.
Yeah, but that's it. But we won't see what we saw from Gordon Hayward in Utah. We're not that guy's gone.
No.
And it's not his fault, but it's just he had a terrible run with injuries. And unfortunately, some of those injuries were absolutely huge. And in a league like the NBA that's getting faster all the time, it's detrimental. Right? So, like, while it looks good now to have... No, exactly. And while it looks good now, like, being a veteran leader, like, he's filling a solid role for the Hornets. But, like, do you really think anyone was going to toss $30 million at him? Like, at the time when he hit free agency, was anyone going to toss $30 million at him?
I personally don't think so.
No, and I think he fills a good void for Charlotte. But the guy's like, the guy's probably ahead of his time in terms of like physical decline, and it's just gonna, it's not gonna age well. It's not gonna age well, and it's not his fault, but it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That said, moving on, I have number 7 as Andrew Wiggins, actually, which is, in my opinion, Brent, and we said a lot of these guys did deserve their contract. I don't think Hayward deserves his contract, and I definitely don't think Wiggins deserves his contract.
No, I agree. I meant most.
Yep.
Like a majority.
But this guy was overbilled from day one, was inefficient as fuck, was handed too much responsibility, and ultimately they banked on potential and never got it. And he won't live up to that contract. I wouldn't be surprised to see him.
We don't think he will.
No.
There's always a chance, but like it doesn't look like it will.
No. I think, yeah, that said, he's still got time on his side. He's 25. And he's got, I think it's 2 years left on that deal now. But another
he hasn't even entered his prime yet, really.
No, exactly. But he's one of those guys that feels like he's been around forever at this
point.
Yeah,
you know it does. But at the end of the day,
he did win the Rookie of the Year, and he's not a bad player.
No,
he's not a bad player at all.
No, he's not. But does he deserve the contract?
The
ultimate of it, right?
Definitely.
We're just defending him a little bit because he does deserve a little defense, and
he deserves some money, maybe not that much. Of course, that's debatable, but he definitely deserves a half decent contract because he's a good player. I respect the shit out of Andrew Wiggins. I think he gets hated on a lot for how he's averaged 25 points a game his whole career, or at least he's never averaged
under 20.
No. I literally saw a stat last season that he's never averaged under.
His career high average is 22. This year he averaged 18.
That's still not bad though.
No, by no means is it bad.
On a team with Steph Curry.
On a rookie max extension. Obviously it didn't come from the Warriors, but the guy was inefficient in his time with Minnesota. Obviously had more offensive responsibility.
That's also Minnesota though. They were expecting him to be the guy in Minnesota. Minnesota's
I get that, but at the end
we're talking about a team that was Zach LaVine was considered not good enough for.
I could tell you right now that I would not be overly surprised to see Minnesota not in the league in a decade.
Nah, in a decade maybe, but I don't know. They've been around for a long time and they do have a fan base despite their.
The other thing to speak on is that Zach LaVine went to the Bulls and was disgusting. If Andrew Wiggins went to a team that didn't have glorified superstars, he could be good.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid third option on the Warriors right now. To be honest,
I think so too. But I think he could go somewhere and be a number one option if he'd have to step up. But I think he could do it, like Zach LaVine did.
At the end of the day, is anyone going to take on this $35 million a year contract? No. And that's why it's so detrimental, is because he's being overpaid to fill a role that
unless he went to a bad team, they might.
Yeah, but what bad team is going to because then you have to match salaries too. So the Warriors, who are trying to win championships, are they really going to go trade him for maybe Robert Covington and Norman Powell or something like that? No, obviously
I
not.
Would take that.
I don't even think the Blazers would offer it, to be honest with you.
I don't think so either. That's why I said I would take that.
I'm just pulling names out of a hat, though. You get what I'm saying is that he was paid a contract to be much more than he is, and at this point, that is star level money, and that's not what he is. He's a valuable role player, but valuable role players don't make $45 million over 32.5 million over every year for the next 2 years. That's just not it. He's just being paid too much to fill that role, and it's not that in 2 years, if he goes and signs with the Rockets or something, that he doesn't explode an expanded role. He just wasn't ready for that contract when he got it.
No, I totally agree. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a really good career somewhere.
Yeah.
He's not in his prime. I'm not saying he deserves that money. I'm just saying he's hardly great to what he could be.
It was before his time. And unfortunately, he's been in the league almost 7 years. At what point are we talking about missed potential over potential that's still there, right? So if I'm looking at my list, number 8, another one of those guys, I think this was more of a situation where they wanted to keep him, and Tobias Harris. I think I think 5 years, 180 million for a guy who's supposed to be third option in your team, and just hasn't been over. Is now the second option, obviously, but for a third option at the time, not exactly smart team building. I don't know what he was going to get out there, but I don't think 5 years and 180 million for a guy who's has never shot over 40% from three in his career and probably hasn't shot over 50% in his life. Probably not the smartest move.
No, I agree, but he is a big part of that team.
Yeah. And then lastly, two guys that fill roles. I think Draymond at number 9. Draymond just doesn't put up the kind of counting stats. Yeah, he's vital to the Warriors, but I don't think anyone else has taken on that contract.
What is his contract again?
His contract is 3 years, $77.5 million. So not the worst contract on there.
See, I don't hate this because one, he deserves it.
Yeah.
For what he did on
Absolutely.
that Warriors team.
Absolutely.
2, he's still a really, really productive guy on that Warriors team, and I think he's the second most important piece even when Clay's there.
But do you think he would be that important somewhere else? I think he's a
no, but I don't think it matters.
System.
No, I don't think so either. But for the Warriors, I don't think it's a detrimental contract.
But if
this is the one on your list that I don't agree with.
Honestly, I'm going to agree with Clem on this one. That's not enough money for someone who's done so much for that team that's a detrimental contract.
Yeah, I think
he's still doing it. It's not like he's a liability.
No, dead ass. He's not doing badly enough where he's not making too much money to where his play is bad enough that he shouldn't be making that much money. With the stuff he's already done for that team, I don't think that's a detrimental contract at all, to be honest with you.
Do I think he deserves the money? Yeah, but he's a player who excels in the system, and I don't think they would find any value trying to move him if they ever thought about it.
I don't think so either, but I don't think that means it's a detrimental contract just for the fact that it's Draymond Green. He's basically the quarterback of that offense.
Yeah. He's worked his ass to get up.
No, he is the quarterback of that offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just my opinion, guys. You don't have to. Yeah,
I totally agree. But if I said something like that, you guys would.
I would say that he's more of the center than the quarterback, just because Steph. I would say Steph is the quarterback. But I see what you're saying. He's a team leader, and he runs a part of the offense really well. But I think Steph runs that whole offense.
Lastly,
I see what you're saying.
Beck, I see what you're saying, bud. But at the end of the day, I think he deserves it more than.
And this is kind of the one where I'm like, okay, this isn't really a detrimental contract for the fact that, I mean, compared to the other ones on the list, Kemba Walker, Kemba's not doing what he did when he got the contract. Draymond is still pretty much doing what he did, and he's going to continue doing that.
I think the point that Beck's trying to make is that the contract would be a detrimental air quotes
in the league somewhere else
to a different team, to a different team, but not to the Warriors. But not to the Warriors.
So that's where I kind of don't like this list. Where I disagree with this list because it's all situational. You could argue a lot of contracts are good contracts because of where they are.
But a lot of the stuff that we talk about is situational. A lot of the
I get that.
But is situational.
I'm saying, yeah, sure. If we're saying he's on a different team, if you throw him on the Pelicans or anywhere else, sure. But it's not a detriment to his team. He's not.
It's the same thing you said about John Wall, and that the fact it's not detrimental because the Rockets have no need for contending. But do I think that Draymond Green would fetch that kind of money on the open market?
No, of course not.
We're not saying that.
And the reason why I put it as detrimental is because he deserved the money. Is it an overpay in hindsight? Yeah, because would anyone else pay him anywhere near that kind of money anywhere else in the league? No.
I don't think it's an overpayment
for a team like the Warriors where they need the cap space more than anyone because they have record high luxury tax bills. Yeah, they overpaid Draymond. He deserved it, but they're footing a larger bill because of it. It was probably unnecessary to a small extent.
Sure, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to leave it at that because this is getting a little bit longer winded. And your last two are what? Harris and Buddy Hield?
Last one's Buddy Hield.
Did we already talk about Harris?
Yeah, we already talked about Harris.
Okay, it was just brief then. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so Buddy Hield, yeah. I agree with this
Buddy
one.
Hield,
partially.
3 years, $78 million. Just too much for a guy who just shoots threes and doesn't really do anything else, right?
Especially on a team that's not that great.
Yep, exactly. Kind of
He's
similar
a
to Wiggins,
glorified
just
role player.
overbuild.
I like
Yep,
him,
just
but he's a glorified
overbuild.
role player.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in saying that, I want to give a shout out to our network over at Old City Sports. Lots of great content over there. Go check it out for podcasts like ours, including Flyers Alley, Backstabbers Wrestling, The Three Pointer, and The Dusty Buttes. You can also check me out live every day, starting up again probably this Wednesday. That's called Dropping the Mics. Check out all the shows. Leave some constructive criticism. Like it, share it. Again, we don't want your money. We just want you to share shit. And that's how we can keep bringing content to you guys and hopefully grow this into something more. So if you enjoyed this, I appreciate if you leave a like, share it to your friends, shout it at the top of the mountain if you'd like to. But once again, appreciate you guys as always. And in saying that, that is our show for today. Our schedule is now Monday and Friday, likely around 7:30, 8 p.m. every time. So in saying that, thanks, guys. And to you boys around here, cheers.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers.